Welcome back to Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast. For our biggest podcast of the year, we have been peaking, training, dedicating our voices, tapering for this very moment. The Le Tour de France is here. Le Grand Boucle around France. We're in hot conditions. We're doing heat training right now for this podcast, and I'm so excited. It's time for the main event of the year, Benji. How pumped are you?
Well, I'm of course pumped. This is the moment that the season is building up towards, and this is the moment where we see Tadej Pogačar versus Vingegaard at the big moment, at the race they fully prepared or fully prepared for, and now we'll see 1v1 plus other candidates perhaps who will take the yellow jersey at the end of these 3 weeks. And parkour-wise, some interesting mountain stages in week 3, but we'll get through all that. But I'm certainly very much pumped, and I can't wait for this race to get started.
We're going to do this as we normally do. We're going to go through this. We'll set the stakes. That's what Benji's got in the notes. What's happened up to this point, not just this year, but in previous years? What's the record? What are the standings? Then we're going to go and preview quickly what's the general route looking like. And then we'll go through the start list by sort of jersey or goal. So the GC favorites in their respective teams, the outsiders, the green jerseys, the sprinters rather, the KOM jersey, maybe some stage hunters, as well as the white jersey, and we'll wrap up all the teams. And then we're going to go stage by stage analysis with picks, the rules, different rules applying to some of these stages, and what we think will happen before rounding out and saying what our predictions are for this Tour de France. So very, very excited. It's a bit of a 2021 start to this route, but what are the stakes, Benji? What's happened in the post-COVID cycling world with the two big players here?
Yeah, it's true. It kind of starts post-COVID because we have TDF 2020, which is the first Tour de France we covered on this podcast. So a bit of a flashback to our beginnings. Primož Roglič with Jumbo-Visma being in full control of the race, and we kept on hammering in our podcast. We kept on saying they're playing too defensively. This might bite them in the ass. And eventually, Tadej Pogačar beats Roglič with his wonderful time trial on the Planche de Belfië. That was a masterstroke. And at that race, Pogačar wins his first Tour de France. Then we come to the next year. They're both at the start line again, Roglič and, of course, Pogačar. But there's one difference there. There's one difference there where Roglič ends up crashing out relatively early, which means another man has to step up. And that's where Jonas Vingegaard comes into play. That's where we have the 1v1 beginning. TDF 2021, Pogačar dominates. But Vingegaard podiums the race. So that's a fantastic result for a then younger Jonas Vingegaard. We enter the Tour de France 2022. Jumbo-Visma is on their knees. They are desperate. How can we beat Tadej Pogačar? And that question is figured out in 2022. They crack the code, and Jonas Vingegaard ends up beating Tadej Pogačar. The massive Col de Granon action. I loved it. You loved it. Everybody loved it. We get to 2023. It's a bit the opposite of the TDF 2021. Kind of, not really, but Jonas dominates, and Pogačar capitulates on Col de la Loze. We had a good Tour de France that year, though. We had a pretty good Tour de France for multiple years now, I would say, in certain years. Because then we go to the Tour de France 2024, and we have good action again between the big guns, but we enter that TDF 2024 with, Jonas crashed out at the Basque Country. Pretty serious injuries to the point that, can he cycle again? Stuff like that was coming up initially, but he arrives at the Tour de France, and he comes up at a really good level in the first few stages on the San Luca climb, for example. In that Tour de France, though, Jonas is not able to show anything to Pogačar because Pogačar has evolved. He does not seemingly have those same weaknesses as 2022, 2023, and he dominates the 2024 Tour de France with insane performances on Plateau de Bay, on Isola 2000, and that's the thought we have going into the 2025 season, this season. And I gotta say, yes, there was always the question, can Jonas Vingegaard with perfect preparation now on paper, preparation that does not involve crashing hard at Basque Country, can he prepare perfectly towards the Tour de France 2025? And the Dauphiné 2025 was the last indicator there. But Patrick, what did we perceive at the Dauphiné then?
Well, it looked like for the first 4 stages or 5 stages, that Vingegaard was maybe the equal of Pogačar. The stage one, Visma started to ping attacks across the place, and Pogačar still won the stage, but he was outnumbered. The TT was the big surprise, where Pogačar was beaten by Remco. We all expected Remco to win the TT, but then for Vingegaard to be Pogačar, we weren't expecting. But then the rest of the tour, the Dauphiné was a beatdown. Pogačar just did what he wanted. I think a 1 minute gap on a 20-minute climb on Combloux. If that's the difference between the two, we're not going to have a competitive Tour de France. If that's the difference. The next day, longer climb. Let's call it a 30-second gap in reality. No, it wasn't a 14-second gap. Pogačar started to do his cool down. That's still a big difference. So Pogačar wins the Dauphiné by a minute. Before the Dauphiné, if we said, will Pogačar win by 30 to 60 seconds? Probably be like, sure. Kind of expected case. If you're Vingegaard, maybe you hope it's more like 20, 30. But I guess it was the stages where it happened was different to what we expected. If Pogačar won bonies and 25 seconds in the TT, but then Vingegaard didn't get dropped in the mountains, I think that's a different narrative right now. But the narrative right now is Vingegaard's got to catch up.
That is true, and especially because 2024 set the stakes. We spoke about setting the stakes. It's a Tour de France 2024 that really set the stakes of what Pogačar can achieve at a Tour de France. There we saw what power to weight ratio he can push on a big mountain at the end of a high kilojoule stage at a Tour de France in week 3, etc. And those watts I have not seen from Jonas Vingegaard in his career. So that's what you're hoping to see at the Dauphiné then. Some kind of indication that Jonas might be able to get to those watts and maybe have that power once he gets to the Tour de France. But so far, I have not necessarily seen that. But does that mean that Jonas has no chance to win the Tour de France? Not necessarily, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah, there's 21 stages to get through, but indeed, the Dauphiné, 1 minute, the hierarchy was the same as 2024. Pog, Jonas, a tier below, then another tier below to the Remcos of the world fighting, scrapping behind. We did have some interesting pretenders, like Florian Lipovitz is stepping up in a big way. So that was really exciting to see. But indeed, I would say the stakes, Benji, are unchanged.
Yeah,
they're unchanged. It's Jonas against Pogačar, with Pogačar in the ascendancy as the best rider in the world, the defending champion. And there's no excuses. I mean, 23, Poggy had the... I don't think... If you read all the interviews, which of course I do. I just read everything. Poggy's... I think his crash in 23, okay, you say, we'll just get on the turbo, get on the trainer the next day. It's clear that something didn't go swimmingly with the rehabilitation, like perfect rehabilitation. Yeah. So that's an effective preparation. Last year, Vingegaard crash, it's an excuse. This year, zero excuses. Both have, Visma as well. They have super teams. The teams they both have are a joke that they're bringing. They're in good shape. No crashes. Knock on wood. Pray to God.
How much does the concussion of Vingegaard at Paris-Nice impact his preparation to a Tour de France?
We've done the Dauphiné now. He did good watts on stage 7.
Yeah.
There's no excuses from something that happened in March anymore.
Okay. I think that's fair.
Yeah. So that's why it's such an exciting Tour de France. To me, it's like... And then Remco as well. Remco says he's lightest ever. He was way better in the Dauphiné this year. I think Roglic and Bora have some excuses, but that's why it's so exciting, such a mouthwatering proposition, kind of like 2014 Tour de France. I hope it doesn't end up that way. But before we get into the actual route itself...
What do you mean?
Yeah. And
hope it doesn't end up with Vincenzo Nibali, the GOAT of cycling, winning? What do you mean?
Yeah, well...
Talking.
The problem is that, two people crashed ahead of him who were arguably better, bigger favourites, bigger favourites for the race.
Contenders was in Narnia after the cobble stage, talking about. I heard some rumours that you were climbing like crazy and put some people in Narnia on the climbs the other day.
Dude, I'm so cooked because yesterday I went out for just a chill ride. It was 35 degrees. And then my joint cycling training plan was just like 1 hour, 1.5 hours, just like some tempos. And then I get to Bechelis. I hear some music coming up behind me. I was like, fuck me, this car. Because normally that climb, there's nobody on a week, like nobody there. And it's coming fast. This music, big boom box. I'm like, am I back in the Gold Coast hinterland where Hilux is about to run past me? I look around, 2 Astana jerseys, Bahrain jersey, Bora jersey. It's the Colombia National Championships for this weekend. It was a Colombian National Champs, but it was on Bechelis past my house. Higuita, Tejada, Martinez, and Buitrago. And I'm like, fuck it. I got to follow them for as long as possible. So then I started trying to follow them. They weren't saying a word. They were actually going like quite fast. I mean, not just like amateur. They were actually going quite fast.
Yeah. How many watts were you doing in their wheel?
400. 400. I'm a little bit sick, so yeah, I'm doing the excuse. I mean, I criticize Remco sometimes, but I would do the same. A little bit sore throat. True story. I told my wife this weekend. This is not even bullshitting. Not even doing a bit. I said to Mrs. Rouge, "I'm not speaking all weekend.
Yep.
Not even a word. Only I'm saving the voice for the Monday pod because I can feel a bit of a tickle in the throat, and I got a taper." And she's like, "All right, I'm married to an insane person," so we moved on. But I literally didn't speak. So now I'm pent up, full of energy. Anyway, this is join cycling. Join cycling can make you follow the Colombian National Championships up Bechelis. It has changed. Benji's coming here. He's about to do a test in a week. Look at the price. Yeah,
I will drop Buitrago on his recovery ride.
Well, he'll be in the Tour de France, so I really don't think you will, but good job for the read. If you were in the Tour and dropped him, we maybe need to do a different pod. Join cycling, when you compare the pricing to having your own trainer or even other software products, under 10 euros a month, 10 USD a month, crazy value for something that adapts to your availability, sickness, you're feeling bad, don't have time. This is something that will make your fitness on the bike improve more than you can believe. Even if you try it for a month, use our 30-day free trial, you will not believe how much fitter you get from seemingly not overextending. That's part of the point. It's what's in the algorithms and the training plans. Try out the Lanterne Rouge plan. Thousands of people are using that plan. It's one of the most popular plans on Join Cycling. I helped make them with it to make it achievable. Go through our link down below and get the 30-day free trial, or just get an annual membership because this supports the show. Join Cycling have been with us the last 2 seasons as our show partner. Go and show them the love and go and use the annual plan through our free trial. As I said, 10 euros a month or less than for something that can basically change your life on the bike. And if you do a bit of running like I do, helps as well. All right, Benji, where are we going?
We're going to France. Spoilers, the Tour de France is 100% in France this year, which we don't necessarily remember many of those in recent years because there's always a Grand Départ in a different country or maybe just outside of France that then goes into France, like Basque Country. We don't have that at this moment in the Tour de France. It starts off very French in Lille, next to Belgium, just under Belgium. And if you remember, Lille was also the start of a stage in 2022, if I recall correctly. But from Lille, we gradually move towards Bretagne, where we have a bit of a, I was going to say a more traditional first few days, but the first week I wouldn't classify as fully traditional either, because it's a combination of flat stages with unsure hilly stages that might also lead to GC stages. And there's an ITT in there, 33 kilometers. There's a couple of sprint stages. But if a pure sprinter looks at week one, they're also not going to be too happy because there's too many hill stages for them, I would say. If a GC rider looks at week one, they might have mixed feelings too, because Patrick, a week one with lots of small hills, with descents, with maybe a short steep climb, stuff like that. What do you think are the odds that a GC rider has some kind of crash in week one or something? We don't want it, but this is the parkour that shouts it to me.
It's 100%. I'm sorry to say, but it's 100%. I mean, when you see the roads, the amount of these stages, it's not like, okay, maybe 2 of them you can get through and it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's like a week straight of this. And I'm less worried about the really hard 4,000 meter altitude stages because they're so hard, it will just get thinned out. But I mean, stage 3 to Dunkirk, even the Chateau Rouge stage on stage 9, the stage 8, and it's like, if there's strong breakaways too in this hilly terrain, it's going to be even hard to bring back the breakaway, and then there's going to be like a pace all day. It's just, with the wind, maybe some rain predicted, I'm afraid it will happen. It's inevitable, I'm afraid.
I've got that feeling too. And obviously, the go-to riders that have a higher crash probability in the GC list are the likes of Remco, Roglic, and Thomas for me. Those are the three where I look towards and I see riders that crash a lot in these kind of situations. Now, I hope that does not happen. I hope the GC riders get through week 1 in one go. And it's not just the climbs, etc. It's also the sprint for positioning before every climb. Those moments, I fear we're going to see something like that this week. But hey, we won't jinx it. Let's believe that it will not happen. What are you going to say?
Well, in 21, what stage do we have stage 1?
I do not remember. Oh, yeah, in Bretagne, right?
When was the big crash? It was the stage 3 that Merlier won. Yeah, there was Opiomi, and then this random sprint stage on stage 3 to Pontivy. Admittedly, they had a descent finish, but Little Hills, there was this huge crash. Haig was out. I can't remember if Roglic crashed. I think
he crashed in week 1.
I think Poggy technically crashed there, or maybe avoided it, but didn't lose time. He didn't lose time. We have a lot of those stages, and it's the same region. So, yeah, this first week is hectic. And a lot of teams are actually built for this first week.
But we'll get into the teams later. Let's talk about week 2 for a second. We move away from Bretagne and we move towards the Massif Central. We know the Massif Central from Puy-Marie and so forth from previous Tour de France's. I would classify Massif Central stages as medium mountain stages. And stage 10 is a medium mountain fest, like up and down, up and down, up and down to the finish line, basically. So can't wait to talk about stage 10 for sure, but from that stage
hot.
10...
It's in the center of France. It's in the center. That it's typically hot, hard roads. You see the tarmac boiling in these sort of stages.
And do we know what the temperatures are going to be like in week 1, 2, and 3 at the moment, roughly?
1 looks quite mild. We have a heat wave in Europe right now, and 1 is quite mild. Week 1, rather. I don't know Massif Central. When I say week 1, I mean literally stages 1 through 7. I don't know about 8, 9, 10. And then the Pyrenees, it's a bit far. It's 2-3 weeks away, or 2.5 weeks away till the Pyrenees, which is where they go next, which can also be super hot. They just go directly south, and they go towards Toulouse, Benji, and then they hit the Pyrenees for like 3 consecutive brutal stages.
They do, and we do have climbs like Tourmalet being present, Otakam being present. We've got Peragude being back, and lots of climbs like that. Peresurde, I can't wait to go through every single stage that has one of those mythical climbs, but it doesn't stop after week 2, of course. We enter week 3, and that's where we get the hardest mountains. That's where we get the hardest mountains, and that's where we go to the actual Alps, where we've got Mont Ventoux, for example, on maybe one of the lighter mountain stages, to be honest. But there's 2 other mountain stages there with the mythical Col de la Loze. Can we say it's mythical already? Because it's so recent in the sport of cycling, started in 2020, but it's now the 3rd time it's been featured. I think it's a different side this year though, right?
Yeah, it's an easier side than in 2023. There's an extended, easier section, but that's a brutal stage, 5,000 meters climbing. The accumulated climbing is a lot in that stage, and then the next day is La Plane, I think. So the Alps are a little bit more gradual than the Pyrenees, which are typically more, maybe the average gradient is similar, but the Pyrenees is more like inconsistent gradients, more ramparts or steeper sections. And then we move up to Paris for the last, as a couple of hard transition stages, by the way. The transition stages this year are very difficult. Like the Carcassonne stage, if that's 40 degrees, it's a nasty, nasty stage for the breakaway. And then, of course, the final stage in Paris, they have changed this year to put in a couple of reps of Montmartre, which is supposed to entice some actual racing, which I can understand, actually. I think that makes sense commercially, excitement-wise, audience-wise. So that's the route. Hilly, punchy, long TT, hot in the middle, start the Pyrenees, middle of week 2, move our way east towards the Alps, where we have 3 mountain stages, and then back to Paris. It's just a I don't know. The main difference here, Benji, is a lack of a mountain stage in week 1. Like a real mountain stage. Last year we had Galibier stage 4. Poggy already set his stall out. He already took 45 seconds on that stage with bonies on Jonas. Stage 5 in 23, Marie Blanc. Vingegaard took a minute on Pogačar. And then they even had Tourmalet Cambasque on stage 6. 22, I can't recall so well. We had Planche de Belfier, maybe.
Yes, I think Planche de Belfier, the cobble stage in week 1. So those were differences already in the first part of the race. And here, some differences are possible. It sounds like bad luck might be the biggest reason for potential bad luck or skill issues. That's also a possibility. Crashing is not always bad luck. The combination of that can lead to time loss for certain GC riders. Also, there are, like stage 10 for me is also a stage where time difference can matter. But that's more a stage where it's tactically time loss can matter. And not necessarily, I don't expect Pogačar to attack Vingegaard. Well, I expect some action between the GC riders there, but I don't expect a 3-minute gap between the GC riders on that stage. I see it more as that is the kind of stage where potentially you can play out your co-leaders, but we'll get to that specifically when we get to that specific stage in our stage-by-stage analysis. But we've spoken about this parkour very quickly now. I want to ask you, Patrick. We see Tadej Pogačar and Jonas Vingegaard at the start line. Let's start comparing teams here, because do we feel like both teams have a similar setup in terms of roles for their riders?
Well, no. No, I think they're actually very different in both composition and roles. And we'll start with UAE. We start with the heavy favorite, Tadej Pogačar. The odds are Pogačar's $1.40, I think. GC favorite, $1.36 rather. Vingegaard's $3.40. So it's really with Remco at $10. It's between those three is what the market's saying. We'll get to Broe in a second, but Pogačar's the more than odds-on favorite at $1.36. That's an implied probability of 70% plus to win the race. His team, though, is for that reason all around Pogačar. You want to win stages? You win it with Pogačar. You want to keep a rider safe? 7 riders committed to keeping Tadej Pogačar safe. Climbing-wise, the strongest team in the race, most likely, if Adam Yates is in good shape. Poggy, of course, needs no introduction. Almeida just won 3 consecutive World Tour one-week races. He came 4th in the Tour last year, 3rd in the Giro in 23. Narvaez, puncher, classicsy type guy. Pollitt, climbing rouleur. Sivakov, climbing rouleur. Soler, climbing rouleur. Tim Wellens, the classics support, just won Belgian national champs yesterday. I think maybe the most important rider for Pogačar in the whole race, Tim Wellens. Adam Yates is the pure climbing support. So there's no... Like, Pollitt is not a Feeney. It's not the same rider. So to me, it's more climbing focused, and this is a team that's can just destroy some of those long mountain stages in the 2nd and 3rd week.
I think so too, but then you pointed at it. It's not necessarily an Affini in Nils Pollitt, because we said this during our Milano Sanremo recap and preview that Pollitt is not necessarily a godlike when it comes to positioning. He's a good ruler, don't get me wrong. He's a great rider, but that specific role, he hasn't necessarily mastered, and we've seen that quite a few times. It's just not him based on what we've seen so far. So then my question on top of that is, okay, positioning-wise, I expect Visma Leasebike to be better when it comes to positioning Jonas for every small hill in week 1. If I look at the UAE team, and then the Visma team being Vingegaard, obvious course as the GC leader, Affini being that positioning man, Tish Benoit and Victor Kampenaerts. Kampenaerts also present for positioning, I would argue. Jorgensen, Kuss, Yates, Van Aert. This is a strong team. We'll go into the in-depth roles of Visma Leasebike in a second, but I'm just trying to build my point here that I think it's very possible that Pogačar might end up being, positioning-wise, the 9th rider on Visma Leasebike during the first week of this Tour de France.
It really depends on Narvaez and Wellens. So, yeah, as I said, Wellens is in great shape, but he can't do it all himself. Sivakov was quite good in the Dauphiné at it, actually. And, but yeah.
But not perfect either. The first stage didn't work.
I think in reality, one of Pollitt or Soler, probably based on his Dauphiné shape, Soler should be out. And then for this first week, you want Ivo Oliveira or Florian Vermeersch. But Poggy can position himself better than Vingegaard. He can solve problems himself better than Vingegaard. Stage 1 Dauphiné, he was isolated. He still won the stage. He's always there in crosswinds. The bigger issue, Benji, is what if something does go wrong? Does he have the team to solve it? Then the horsepower on the flat. Maybe, maybe not. But in the mountains, Almeida could be the third best climber in this race ahead of Remco. Yep. And then I don't even think, like, the mountain hierarchy will be Pollitt pulling, like controlling with Soler. Then you have Sivakov to do longer climbs. And then you have like Wellens and Narvaez if they can do their explosive lead out like on Combloux, and even Murder Britannia, or even Adam Yates did the San Luca lead out. They have really good guys for those 5-minute climbs or even 2-minute climbs. So we say they maybe miss a little bit of horsepower, but actually in terms of doing a 2-minute lead out on a steep climb, Wellens and Narvaez might be and better than what Visma have, also because they're all dedicated to one person, one goal.
Are we saying that Visma Leasebike is not dedicated to one goal? Because we look at those riders again. Jonas Vingegaard being the GC leader. Then we've got Sepkus Jorgensen and Simon Yates, which were kind of, some of those riders were played out as a secondary GC rider at the Dauphiné, together with Ben Tollett as well. So, like, are we saying that we see a multi-leader strategy brewing here? Because I don't see the possibility for Jorgensen, Kuss, and Simon Yates to endanger Pogačar in any way in this Grand Tour.
And that's the thing, because maybe I'm wrong in that UAE would also just do that with Almeida. I think Almeida, the idea is he will get to ride for his own GC as long as possible. And that is not that he's going to throw away his own GC to keep him happy. I think week one's tough for him. But yeah, on the point of then, at Visma, Simon Yates just won the Giro though.
Yeah, but the Giro is built different than the Tour de France for me.
It is indeed.
The consistency across 3 weeks in this Tour de France after having done a Giro is also a question. And that's not just a question that is brought up with Simon Yates. Yes, Sepp Kuss has been able to do 3 Grand Tours, but I'm looking at Mr. Wout van Aert as well, where he did the cobbles, then the Giro, and then the Tour de France. And I'm then wondering, are we going to see the best Wout van Aert at this Tour de France? You'd hope so. And what is the best Wout van Aert in 2025? Is that the level we saw at the Vuelta, for example? Is that the level we saw on Colle del Finestre? Can he ever get back to 2022 Wout van Aert? Or was Colle del Finestre Wout level the same as 2022 Wout van Aert? We're always comparing the peaks of Wout van Aert together with each other, but what is a realistic level we can expect from Wout van Aert at this Tour de France is a question that has actually been in my mind for the last week, and I think he's going to be good, otherwise he probably wouldn't be at the start line. Except for the sickness.
He just had to pull out of Belgian Championships due to some sickness. Will he be in the 2022 shape? Maybe not, relative to especially Van der Poel, who Van der Poel in Dauphiné looked incredibly sharp. So I would still say if there's a steep ramp, you'd expect Van der Poel to punch away on it. But will he be good? Yeah. Affini also did the Giro and is backing up from the cobbles. So Visma bring 3 out of the Giro. UAE only 1. They bring Adam Yates out of the Giro. And their team, as I said, is largely unchanged from last year. Just Ayuso out, Narvaez in. I'd say that is probably an upgrade on what Ayuso did last year. And then Visma, Visma's is way different. Last year had Bart Lemon, Jan Tratnik, and can't even remember who else. But now that
they crashed half the season.
They cobbled it together like in the week before. They just put some. So, Kuss got COVID and he was out. And so they have 2 better climbers, Kuss and Simon Yates, than last year. And Affini, it is a downgrade on peak Christophe Laporte. And Campenaerts is in for Tratnik, which is probably an upgrade.
I do want to mention something more in this discussion between UAE and Visma Leasebike. Pogačar and Vingegaard. can we talk about their level for a second here? Because Pogačar, when it comes to his climbing, the 2024 Tour de France, that's right now the level I expect from Tadej Pogačar, the Plateau de Bay level, the Isola 2000 level in this Tour de France. Then I look at Jonas Vingegaard. I haven't seen that level. I stated it before. So how can Visma Lease Bike then hurt UAE Team Emirates? And there obviously, as someone that's invested in the Tour de France, that's something that's been in my mind the last 2 weeks, and trying to figure out ways where have we seen any weakness from UAE in the last half a year, for example, the last year, which from Tadej Pogačar himself, not necessarily. So it's more looking at UAE, can Visma Lease Bike as a whole hurt UAE as a whole? And then I'm thinking positioning before the small climbs in week 1, that's something where you want to look at. That's a possibility, because it's possible that UAE's positioning for Pogačar doesn't get it all right. Is it possible that Pogačar himself saves it if his position by his team is not perfect? Yes, he's done it a million times before. But that's an area where I'd expect Visma to be better than UAE. Is that going to be enough to take minutes on Pogačar and win the Tour de France? Not necessarily. But are there other ways we see Vingegaard being able to hurt Pogačar based on what we've seen in the last year?
I mean, not really. Not really. I mean, if a guy rides a mountaintop finish 1 minute faster than you, like at the end of the day, it's a pretty straightforward sport in terms of GC. So a lot can happen in the stages before, like you just mentioned, all those things. But this UAE team, Benji, it ain't the bullshit they were trotting out in 2020 and 2021.
Yeah.
That's why we were so hard on Jumbo-Visma, because they were up against the ghost of Fabio Aru, 2 sprinters, and like David de la Cruz riding his own GC, and they didn't do anything. This UAE team is stacked.
It is. And it is stacked enough, in my opinion, because then I look at another option. Okay, how did Sepp Kuss win La Vuelta 2023? He did so on a medium mountain stage, which looks a lot like a stage 10 in this Tour de France, for example. Try and go into a breakaway, slip into a breakaway with one of their secondary GC riders and try and put pressure on UAE Team Emirates. But that's a possible tactic that could put UAE in stress. But I have not necessarily seen UAE at the Tour de France make a mistake so gravely on a stage like that for that to be able to work against them.
And that's the point, because the Giro, that clusterfuck, that doesn't happen with Pogačar because he's the DS on the road. Like, he is aware of what's happening. He's like, okay, this could be crosswinds here, or this is a tricky moment, or we should go here, we should go easy, or let that break go. He is doing it. That being said, Visma have to apply pressure, Benji. If you don't apply pressure, if you don't try things, then if you just walk through every mountain stage, most likely Pogačar is just going to win. So,
and that exactly brings me to the point of, like, over the last month, we've heard the likes of Richard Blugge mentioning, okay, like the strategy that worked in 2022 and 2023 was throughout the 3 weeks, put pressure on Tadej Pogačar, and then in doing so, potentially building up fatigue, and then it pays off on a massive stage where they also try to build up additional fatigue, stuff like that. But my initial reaction is then, okay, well, based on 2024 Tour de France, that won't work. But on the other side, I look at it and, okay, the only position, the only point at the Tour de France 2024 where Pogačar was a bit in trouble, where Pogačar struggled a little bit, was not necessarily super fatigue, but it was a stage where it opened up early. In doing so, Pogačar seemingly fueled incorrectly or not enough on the medium mountain stage to Puy-Mari last year. And in that stage, Vingegaard ends up beating him in a sprint. So that same strategy of doing the fatigue might accidentally lead to Pogačar not feeling enough. Or do you think they've got a dedicated person in the car now to say, Pogi, it's time to eat your fucking meal, dude?
Well, no, obviously, you watch every race with Pogačar in the Dauphiné, and they're pouring water bottles over him. It depends on the temperature at the Tour de France.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that was a feeding issue on stage 11. I mean, he still did like 6.8 watts per kilo for 12 minutes. It wasn't like a Grenoble level crack, but it also, it's the only time correct me if I'm wrong, it's the only time in the last 18 months anybody has done a climb faster than Pogačar.
In a relevant race, yes. I don't know if he rode a fucking Plouet or something.
Probably there he went quicker too. Like, probably there. So that, what sort of scenario could that be? Because that's actually not Col de la Loze, Benji. Yep. That's some other stage during this race. But yeah, it's you don't know unless you try, and that's like clearly Visma are going to try to win with Vingegaard. He doesn't care about coming second or third. But then you still see Van Aert is there as a bit of a backup to. It's not like he won't go for stages either. Yeah.
How much do we expect the freedom for Wout van Aert to be? Because I do see opportunities in week one. Those hilly parcours where you've got Muur de Bretagne, etc. as maybe one of the longer climbs of the bunch. But my scare is that I consider Mathieu van der Poel going into this Tour de France a lot better than Wout van Aert, to the point that I question whether Wout van Aert in the first place even has a chance for those stages. It's not impossible. He has a chance, but I don't see him competitive versus Mathieu van der Poel in the 1v1 for those stages.
No, I agree. And there's Thibaut Nice. I mean, he's also the second coming of Jesus Christ from your nation. So, no, but all jokes aside, like, we'll get to Naesen and the punchers as well, but it's not a fait accompli that you just beat him either, even if Van der Poel does have a bad day. So, or Pogačar, he can punch pretty well from what I've seen. So, to round off this discussion of UAE versus Visma, Benji, I would say both basically the strongest teams they could possibly bring outside of, in theory, Laporte. And maybe I would put in a Vermeersch or Ivo Oliveira, but that's, I think, nitpicking.
Matthew Brennan.
Yeah, Matthew Brennan, of course. I mean, yes, bring him. But really, this is the best teams. A little bit, Visma's more weighted on the heavier rouleurs. UAE's more weighted on the climbing rouleurs. I'm talking like 65, 70 kilo guys like Sivakov, Soler. But they're strong teams and no obvious weaknesses to me. And indeed, I spoke with Scott Roy, Cervelo's engineering manager, about the new S5, which you may have seen in the Criterium de Dauphiné. And this new S5 is launching on July 8th. We spoke with him beforehand to get a teaser of what's actually different about the bike. Maybe Van Aert on this new S5, Benji, it'll change your opinion on whether he will win on the Muur de Bretagne or on a punchy finish. But we bleeped out how many watts faster the new bike is. The audience can find out on July 8th, but yeah, Benji can guess. But now we'll go to this ad with Scott Roy, Cervelo's engineering manager. What were the main goals in updating the S5, which is already supposed to be one of the fastest bikes in the world in the first place? What are you trying to improve?
We always have to kind of push the boundary on making that bike faster. So aero is always at the forefront for the development. Having said that, it's not difficult to make a fast bike. It's difficult to make a fast bike that rides well. So I think having a balance of aero and weight and stiffness is what I think makes the S5 such a loved bike and such a unique bike.
What was the rider feedback from the Dauphiné? Have you got any feedback from the riders after testing it out in a pretty demanding race?
We want the bike to not be this foreign feeling object for the riders. Having it feel the same is a win in my book. So I think the rider feedback being as it didn't feel any different while being, what's faster than the previous bike is a testament to the team excelling at what their targets were.
So was faster. Riders are saying what actually has changed? There's some funky fork.
The big thing that everyone noticed straight off the bat is the one-piece cockpit. As I mentioned earlier, it's easy to make a bike fast, easy, quote unquote, to make a bike fast. It's hard to do it while not increasing the weight of the bike. So the one-piece cockpit is a good way of pulling out redundant weight. Also in reducing those interfacing surfaces between the stem and the bar, you're able to reduce surface area so that front end gets a little bit more svelte. So there's aero savings there. We worked heavily on the fork. So if you look at the bikes side by side, you'll notice that the front end of the new bike is quite stocky and the cord length is increased on the fork legs. The fork itself, like for like, got heavier. That's one of those sacrifices where I talked about aero, weight, stiffness. We didn't essentially want to take any head tube stiffness out of the bike. So that cornering ability and that descending, how well it carves. Essentially, it's how well the front wheel stays in plane with the rear wheel when you really push through a high G corner. A lot of that is the head tube of the bike, but also a lot of that is the fork legs. So the fork, compared to the previous generation bike, gained about, I think it's 20 or 30 grams, but we took a significant amount of weight out of the front end for the handlebar and the stem, and the frame got a little bit lighter. So if you look at the frame as well, the back end has really kind of slimmed down a lot compared to the previous bike. So the seat tube got a little bit, the cutout for the seat tube got a little bit narrower. So yeah, I think as a system, it lost about 130 grams over the previous bike.
When is the official release of the new bike, and when will it actually be available to consumers?
July 8th.
And then people get their hot fingers and can start ordering from then. So expect, your accent as well as a giveaway. So expect to see it in the Heffron crits in Sydney. That's a shout out to the Sydney people.
It's kind of nice every time I go back home and I see more and more Sabellos.
Good Evenepoel. He's 1 kilo lighter. He's had no issues. Dauphiné, he was better. We've seen media reports that he was angry about the Dauphiné. We've seen him in Belgian championships on the weekend, literally angry with Jasper Philipsen. Deservedly so. Take a pull.
And with the motorbike.
Was he?
With the motorbike behind him for some I still haven't figured out the whole angriness situation, but he's very angry, is what you're saying. And are you saying that we're going to see Remco doing the angry Merlier-like sprint we saw in Basque Country a couple of years ago?
Dude, if Merlier, this might not work out so well. Merlier and Bert and Remco, but anyway, their team is not confirmed, but the main protagonists are indeed Remco Evenepoel, but Quickstep. We actually said they should do this last year. I think when you see week one, it doesn't hurt either. They hedge their bets. They bring the best sprinter in the world, Tim Merlier, with just one guy to lead him out, Bert van Leeuwenberghe. That's all he asked for. They haven't confirmed their team. We did delay this podcast 5 hours, and all the press officers, about half of them, then did upload their confirmed start list. We had 7 or 8 confirmed start lists this morning, and now we do have a critical mass of about 18, thankfully. But Quickstep is not one of them. I'm assuming Catania goes with Enkhorn, Valentin Paré-Pancher as climbing support, Casper Pedersen. Is Van Wilder going, Benji?
I would assume yes.
Okay. Schachmann?
I would assume yes.
So who's out from my list? Who would... Catania maybe, because he's leaving.
I'd be surprised if Enkhorn is at the start line from the list that I'm seeing. But I would say... So Remco's definitely there, obviously. Spoilers. Merlier Bert is there. That's 3. We've got Schachmann, Van Wilder, I would expect as well. That's 5. Then... Paré-Pancher is 6. Casper Pedersen is 7, I expect. I forgot who you said.
Schachmann, Van Wilder.
I'm at 7. I forgot some riders, I think.
So basically there's some miscellaneous rouleurs to keep Remco safe. There's then the lead out of Bert and Merlier. And then there's the 2 climbers plus Schachmann, the Van Wilder, Paré-Pancher. And I think the team is fine. I mean, you would take Lander if he was available. He's not available. You would have Vavaka as a road captain, but he just crashed out of the Dauphiné. I think the level difference, especially after the Dauphiné, they had to take Merlier. I mean, you have to take an option for stage wins. They got to keep Remco safe because he's the favorite for stage. The first time trialist, flat 30k TT. I don't have any issues with the team. I think if we have a Nibali 2014 situation, and I'll say this about Bora too, if we have that situation, then they will miss Lander and Vavaka, because then suddenly you have to control the race, and we've seen Quickstep really struggle to do that in the Vuelta 23. But that's a maybe.
But you say a Nibali 2014 situation. First of all, I'm still offended by that. A Nibali 2014 situation is Nibali riding away from the cobbles and destroying everyone. That's not going to happen here. But I feel like the rider that has been shown as a positioning weakness in the last year has been Remco Evenepoel and his team. So I actually fear for Remco in week 1. Because at the Dauphiné, he was all the way at the back of the peloton at the start of certain climbs. His team didn't necessarily bring him to the right position. And if he was in the right position, in the last kilometer before the climb, he seemingly lost a couple of positions as well. There were a few hills where he was in position, but there were also quite a bit where he was not in position. So Remco is together with potentially Roglic based on his crash probability as well. Those two riders are at the top of my list of those riders that could potentially have trouble in week one. And I hope for the sake of both of them that they get through week one unharmed. But that is my weakness when it comes to this team, because in the mountains, at the end of the day, it's going to be about Remco. And whether he has the legs to beat Roglic, Lipovic, etc. for a podium position, how close he can be to Jonas and Tadej, stuff like that, that's going to depend on Remco and his level. Because third place and fourth place last year, I'm sorry, but the gap was 10 minutes. Like, we can't forget that. So, even a question then, if you're Remco and you know that you don't necessarily have the expertise of positioning in your team based on the last few races and LBL on top of that, how do you approach those hill stages? Do you try to position yourself perfectly at the front? I think you have to. Or are there specific... Do you then go to the strategy in the last 20 kilometers of sprint stages, for example, and position yourself at the back with a buffer around you instead of trying to keep yourself at the front?
But they should do that. I mean, two of the team on those sprint stages are not going to pull, Merlier and Van Leeuwenberger. Parapantra, I don't think that's going to help if he's pulling in the final 10Ks of a sprint stage, nor probably Van Wilder too much.
Mate, the peloton will go backwards.
Yeah, so I agree. On those stages, you should probably be chilling and crossing your fingers and hoping nothing bad happens. On the hill stages, they're an opportunity for Remco to take time on Joao Almeida, on other GC contenders who are not out in position. Remco, you can talk, okay, positioning 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
This guy's a, two-time LBL winner?
Yes.
For a reason. He's an Amstel Gold Race, he pulled Pogačar back. Yep. In a 200k hilly stage. That's advantage Remco Evenepoel, not Joao Almeida.
That is advantage against the podium competitors, but how do you think Quickstep will approach this Grand Tour? Are they going to approach it with Remco as one of the three riders that can win this Grand Tour? Or do they approach it as, we're going to try and get rid of Almeida and Roglic and Lipovic maybe in the first few hill stages, which not necessarily seeing a massive weakness in Lipovic in those stages, but are we trying to get rid of a few of those podium competitors instead of trying to 100% fight Tadej and Jonas? Because I think he's going to do the latter. I think he's going to try and win this Grand Tour and then see where he ends against the others.
I mean, Remco's the third favorite, and he's quite a bit shorter than Roglic. He's 10-1.
Yeah.
And Roglic is 29, Lipovic is 34. I think, let's be honest, Benji.
Yeah.
Remco needs the front two to crash out.
Normally, yes.
So
or capitulate badly.
Or one crash out, one fuck up badly. He needs to do his best possible race. This is very... I know it sounds obvious. No, but it's not obvious because that's not how they ride stage races with Remco the last 3 years. He needs to do his best possible race for Remco Evenepoel. He actually did do it on the stage he attacked last year on the hilly stage, and he surprised Jonas and Pogačar. But when it's a mini Amstel Gold Race, that's a positive thing. It's not like defensive sort of race. And yeah, in the mountains, he should just do TT mode. I mean, he is a TT climber, and trying to respond to Jonas and Poggy doing whatever they're doing, I don't see how that helps him.
I think so too, and I think we've said this for a while when it comes to Remco as a GC rider, that he enters this GC state where it's a conservative way of riding, and then the mountains start, and he stays conservative to try and keep his GC position or try and up his GC position. And what you're referring is kind of the strategy of, okay, hill stage, try and actually go for it on that hill stage instead of just staying with the others and trying to survive with Pogačar and Vingegaard and stay as close as possible, because those are the stages where he might be able to take some time on some of the riders. Like, is there a possibility that Vingegaard or Pogačar have some problem on a hill stage that he can benefit from? That is a possibility. Problems can always happen.
Or they look at each other.
Yeah.
What if Pogačar gets sick? Yeah, I mean, he's not going to win the Tour de France for him, but in the first week. Yeah. But I mean, he's a TT dominant climber like Wiggins, but he doesn't have to ride these hilly races like Wiggins. He's also an LBL winner. He's Olympic gold medalist in the road race on the Montmartre circuit. So
yeah,
the problem, Schachman has to be doing the Wellens job plus. They got to do a better job than Dauphiné.
Yes, but we can't necessarily look at LBL and Olympic road race and just say, okay, just do what you did in those races. Because in those races, Group 2 syndrome matters. And I feel like in Grand Tours, a lot of these big GC teams will have domestiques in their group. Will have their best domestiques to potentially control situations where Remco goes on a hill stage still. I would expect that. Because I don't look at the Soudal Quickstep team, and I don't see a team in that Soudal Quickstep team that can make a hill stage selective enough for Remco's attack to lead to just end up being the other GC riders in a group behind him.
And that's the problem with Merlier and Burt, is they are really pure sprinters. It's not Christophe Laporte and Van Aert.
But who else did the team have to send?
No, I'm not criticizing the team. I think this is the team they should send when you don't have Landa available. I would also, to be honest, I would send. The problem is Lampart's also declined, but yeah, this is the team they should send. It just has its limitations. The most surprising team is maybe the other. They say themselves they're going. Rolf Aldag said they're going for the podium, which is a change.
Okay. Nice.
Red Bull. I would also say it like that. Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe. I actually don't get surprised by team lists very often for Tour de France. This surprised me.
In a bad way?
Just surprised me. Primoz Roglic, Lorian Lipovitz, they're $30 a piece, let's say, for GC. Vlasov, Pithy, Mick van Dijk, Gianni Moscon, Danny Van Poppel, Jordi Meus. They've Red Bull Bora, what they always did was tell a sprinter they're probably doing the tour and then tell them a week before they're out. Bennett, Ackerman. This year they do the reverse.
And I think the reverse also comes because Jordi Meus has been so good this year. Because he keeps on winning whenever he gets sent to a relatively important race. His Tour de Suisse victory, then going to a Copenhagen Sprint the week after. He keeps delivering. And yeah, I've had the opinion after Jordi Meus' first Grand Tour stage victory on the Champs-Élysées of all places that it looked like a one-trick pony. And it was that for a bit. It was that for a couple of years. But I do see Jordi Meus as a sprinter right now that can win a Tour de France stage again in 2025. He has that level. Is he as fast as Tim Merlier, Milan, even Jasper Philipsen? No. But Jordi Meeuw, a meeuw is a seagull in Dutch, so I just call him a seagull. Anyway, Jordi Seagull does have a chance at winning a sprint stage here. And I gotta say, after Copenhagen Sprint, I thought to myself, Roglic Lipovitz, podium possibilities, some climbing domestiques. What if they just send the sprint train with Meus? I generally had that thought as well, and I think it's the right choice.
I think this is the right team. Maybe Tim van Dijk, I think, is better than Mick. I don't think this is a full sprint train.
I see what you mean.
I think I'm trying to be because you could look at this team and say they've completely given up on Roglic, and they're sending 5 guys for a sprint train plus just Vlasov for the mountains. I think this might be an understanding of these hectic stages, these punchy hill stages in week 1. If you want to get Roglic to the mountains without hitting the deck, Lawrence Pithy, he's one of the best in positioning there. Van Dijk, get over these hills. Moscon, okay. So is it that they put these guys in, Benji, on the understanding that, listen, Visma and UAE are going to have some sort of nuclear battle in week 2 and 3 on the mountains? Whatever climbing domestique we have is irrelevant. Roglic just has to follow like Remco. But we got to get him there in one piece. Or do you think they're just here for sprints?
I think both are a good argument. I think there's even a third argument you can make, and I'll get to that. But first of all, when it comes to the sprint train, I see Meus as a sprinter, Danny Van Poppel as the lead out, Pithy as the fighting third last man, fourth last man. Not completely sold on what they have there, but you can work with Pithy, Van Poppel, and Meus. So I see that as a possibility in sprint stages. Yes, it's not a perfect sprint train, but Merlier has Bert van Lerberge, one rider, and Bert wasn't able to position him perfectly in most of the sprint stages they've done together either. Like they get to a position that for for most sprinters, the position that Bert brings Merlier to in half of the sprint stages is uncompetitive. But it's Merlier, and he's so good that he still gets to win from those sprint positions. And maybe I'm a bit harsh in Bert there, but that's what I feel like. Even when I look at certain stages from the Baloise Belgium Tour about a week and a half ago. I look at this team and I see a possibility for Meus to be in a good position and for Van Poppel to also be a solid lead out from that point. Although I haven't seen the best Van Poppel lead outs in a while, despite him as a sprinter for himself, having won quite a few races.
This one just beat Koy from his wheel in Dutch national championships.
Exactly. Now, to bring that forward, I also see the possibility for a Piffy-like character to try his best on the lighter hill stages in week 1. Because the man can sprint on rough, hilly terrain. Is he the favorite against Mathieu van der Poel? No, but he can compete. That being said, that's where your point struggles with that one I just mentioned. Because if Piffy then goes for the hilly parcours, then that's one rider that you might miss in positioning Roglic and Lipovic perfectly in those hilly stages. And that should be the priority. GC podium should be the priority on top of the stages. And I don't necessarily agree that people look at the start list and say they've given up on Roglic. I think they have perhaps given up on Roglic having a solid chance of winning the Tour de France, which I fully agree with. He doesn't have a solid chance of winning the Tour de France. He's just like Lipovic, a podium competitor right now. Can he win the Tour? Yes, the odds are not very high. That's the reality. So I think it's a realistic start list for Red Bull Bora, and that's why I like it.
I agree. It's a change from what they normally sent. They would normally send in previous years like Sagan plus a fourth, Buchmann, and no sprinter. I think Lipovic is clearly going to be allowed to go for his own GC. Anything. I mean, he's earned that. He just came third in the Dauphiné. So you cannot, with what happened in the Giro, Roglic whole pass with crashing. You have to just, if you have two guys, you double the chance that one maybe doesn't crash in week 1 if they're of more or less the same levels. Yeah. So they'll keep, if they don't keep Lipovic in, Germany will riot. So
but
they have no choice.
If you have two GC leaders, do you approach positioning differently? Do you keep them both in the same train at the front, or do you let one stay at the front and one on the other side?
It's gonna. Let's be honest, it's gonna be a disaster. Like we both just said, the whole piece. It's gonna be a disaster.
Okay. Are there any other podium competitors we see next to Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe with Roglic and Lipovic, and even the Soudal Quickstep, outside of potentially Almeida at UAE Team Emirates?
Yeah, Almeida.
Do we believe in Enrique Mas stepping up at the Tour de France?
I don't believe in... No, I love Enric. Actually, no, I don't. Enric's my enemy, but... no, I don't... I mean, Schelmoser... No, I don't see it. Thomas, I don't see it. Carlos Rodriguez... No. Because, the level difference is so big.
Yep.
Even with Almeida. I mean, even say he fucks up some positioning in week 1 and loses 30 seconds here or there, and the TTs alone... Almeida is taking all that time back on whoever, and then in the mountains he will do his thing too. It's not like he's just going to drop.
But are we neglecting Schelmoser a little bit? I don't feel like his high mountains level is high enough for a podium competitor status, but we've obviously seen him do well on hilly parcours. And is there a way where the team of Little Trek can try and rip open week 1 in doing so for Schelmoser and for Thibaut Nys, and trying to hurt podium competitors that way to put Schelmoser in the running by taking other GC riders out in week 1?
It's a good question, because I would say of all the teams we've just discussed, Little Trek is the one with the most different objectives. And like Benji, you've got Edward Turns, Jasper Stuyven, Simone Consoni, plus Schoens and Simmons, but then that's the train for Johnny Milan. You then have Thibaut Nys for the uphill sprints, so a clear to me designation between Milan stages and Nys stages. It's actually a clearer distinction than Pedersen and Milan. And then you have Schelmoser with 0 climbing support. 0. But does he need it? So, and he won Amstel Gold Race. as well. This is not a guy bad in hilly terrain. Is he going for breakaways? Did he win KOM or he helped Ciccone win it?
He helped. Pedersen helped Ciccone win KOM.
No. Schelmoser.
Schelmoser went to La Vuelta, but I don't remember if he actually went to the Tour last year.
Anyway, he came 5th in La Vuelta last year, I think, but like backdooring everything. I think he's just going to go for GC top 10.
Yeah, but I think Little Trek should destroy week 1. Should try and split it on hills, stuff like that, try stuff, because their team can afford to do so because they don't have a fragile GC rider. And they've got a GC rider that on paper benefits from it. Well, he's crashed a few times, but you know what I mean. Terrain fits him.
He got hypothermia in 10 degrees.
Yeah, but there's no 10 degrees next week, so...
Actually, it looks quite cool. But you're
20
right.
degrees is not 10 degrees.
But you're right.
I'm sitting in 40 degrees right now in this room.
You're right. This team, I mean, first of all, Thibaut Naesen needs it thinned out, but this team is really, like Simmons is in great shape, Scoins is great, so Sturven gets over these hills. I think it's an exciting team. I think Simmons will be going for the week 2, week 3 transition stage breakaways.
Yeah.
Is it the best train in the race? Yes, it is. It's the best sprint train in the race.
Yes. If we then compare it to we're talking about sprinters now, actually. We've transitioned over from GC riders to the discussion about the sprinters in this race, and we spoke about Milan here. I want to compare the sprint train of Little Trek with the lead-out train that we see on Alpecin de Koning. Now, we speak about these teams, and we speak about their riders. Alpecin is one of the teams that is not confirmed yet. So we have to take it with a grain of salt. Jasper Philipsen is rumored to be here, but I argue that Jasper Philipsen is definitely going to the Tour de France. So is Mathieu van der Poel. Groves is also written down. I heard some words that Groves might be going to the Tour de France. Do we have a confirmation on that?
I don't know, but if they want to beat Milan, they need a better train. If Milan if they get to do what they want, a Little Trek, and line it up and deliver Milan at 150, 200, I struggle to see Philipsen winning. Maybe Merlier can, but Philipsen needs that Groves Van der Poel like crazy lead out. But Groves did the Giro.
Was every sprint by Milan at the Dauphiné so impressive that we're like, okay, clearly better than Philipsen?
Got beaten by Stewart, right?
You'd argue Milan is better. It's a better sprinter than Philipsen based on the last year. That's what I assume going into this Tour de France. But I wasn't impressed by the Dauphiné either. I was a bit like, oh, that's the kind of feeling I had when I looked at Milan at the Dauphiné. Yes, he won stage, but it wasn't like a godlike stage victory either. Merlier is the one sprinter where we do have that feeling. And we said it already, Merlier together with Bert van Lerberge, compare that to the Little Trek train. Little Trek is more likely to bring Milan into the right position in every sprint stage. Compare that to the Alpecin train, where I've actually got a bit more confidence in the Alpecin train than you might have. That being said, I don't know what the rest of their train will look like. I just feel like the Van der Poel Philipsen combination has worked very well in the last 2 years of the Tour de France, and I expect it to work relatively well again in this Tour de France, especially because I expect a better level by Mathieu van der Poel overall in this Tour de France than maybe ever at the Tour de France. I don't know. What's your feeling about Van der Poel?
Yeah, great level, but he needs a strong team. I mean, we're going to look at these stages that are coming up, Benji, but he'll be the favourite for some of them, but you need a strong team to control the breakaway. Jonas Abrahamsen, he's not going to want to go to the finish on a hilly stage in week 1 with Mathieu van der Poel, and you're not just going to bring him back with Sylvain Dillier alone. Maybe you will, but they need a strong team. I think Vermeersch will go. I think Ricard should go. Robbie Hayes will go, maybe.
Yeah.
And then I would keep Groves for the Vuelta, and then, do it like that. And then, to be honest, they don't really have any climbers anymore on the team except for Vergolito, but they won't take him.
Nah.
So
I feel like the team should be all in support for Philipsen and Van der Poel anyway.
Yeah.
But then I want to bring you to a discussion around this whole sprint list, because we spoke about it off camera before. We've both taken a look at how the sprint points are given out in this race, and it's, I would argue, unusual. Because if I take a look at the actual point system, then we've got, for the people that don't know, the Tour de France organizers designate certain stages into categories from 1 to 6, And those categories will decide how many points for the sprint jersey, for the green jersey that each stage gives. And in this particular race, the stages with the maximum amount of points, the 50 points, which traditionally is for the flat sprint stages, there are a lot of stages that I would classify as definitely not sprints related, that are getting 50 points the maximum amount, to the level that I'd argue that I'm not particularly sure whether Philipsen or Van der Poel is the best rider for the green jersey at Alpes in the Koning.
I think it's Van der Poel. Because Philipsen's not going to win 4 stages like he did in previous years. There's Malir and Milan here. And Mur de Bretagne is 50 points. I think stage 2 or 4 are 50 pointers. And they're uphill finishes. And then you have like all the intermediates. I think the problem with Philipsen and what's his name? Van der Poel is they will cannibalize from each other.
Yeah.
And sort of the same with Thibaut Naesen and Johnny Milan. But Milan is more clear, like at an intermediate, he will just go for it. Whereas, and we've done their teams, my final word on it is I would take the Little Trek lead out, mainly because I also know who's in their team and I don't know who's in Albertson's team. But I would take the Little Trek lead out right now because especially on the versatile sprint stages, Simmons and Sturven are mega strong to bring it back. Vermeersch is good, but I see on the flat sprints they'll be good Alpecin, but on with a bit of hilly, Jonas Ricard ain't there anymore. But then we go to another sprint team who are all in on one man who won the green jersey last year, Biniam Girmay. And they have Hugo Page, Lawrence Rex, Jörg Zimmermann, Louis Barret, Vito Bright, Jonas Ruch, Raoul St. Martinstach. And this is some big-ass rouleurs, Rex and Ruch, some punchy guys, Zimmermann, Barret, and then a sprinter lead-out, Hugo Page. To me, this is all around Bini. They will go for Bini in the flat sprints. They'll go for Bini in the intermediates. They'll go for Bini in the uphill sprints. On the real breakaway stages, Louis Barret will get his chance, but Bini has the advantage here of that he is the one focus on his team for all the green jersey points.
That is true, but my issue with Bini is that he has not won a single race this season. Matthew Brennan is a better sprinter based on his palmarès this year, which that's crazy to say, but that's the case. He's been beaten by Brennan already this season. Then I look at Biniam Girmay, and last year, fantastic Tour de France. Was the most consistent sprinter throughout the Grand Tour, that's for sure. Maybe individually, Philipsen was the fastest one on the flat, but Biniam is more versatile, I'd argue. And actually, Philipsen has also become more versatile over the years, so I'm not sure that's 100% correct. But I would look at... I don't expect Bini to do the same as last year. Bini last year was an exception of the years that he will have at the Tour de France, in my opinion, because Philipsen didn't have it at the start of the Tour de France last year, crashed in the first sprint, if I recall as well, that Bini won, and Merlier and Milan were not even present at the Tour de France last year. Now the 3 best sprinters in the world are here. Does it help Biniam that there's more versatile sprints? On argue, yes, but Mathieu van der Poel is here then. So I don't see it for Bini, and I'd like to see it, but I don't.
I agree, because I think with Van der Poel here, the versatile sprint stages become a puncher stage with like a solo winner or a group of 3 or 4. When it was no Van der Poel, Van Aert, Visma in the past, or Jumbo, they would try to control for like a sprint of 25, 30, which then Bini would be there. To me, it's either going to be a flat sprint huge group or literally like 3 guys, because Van der Poel's dropped a nuke. And then Bini can't follow that. So...
Is it also because the hill stages that we have in week 1, we haven't gone into the parkour, but would you classify them as hill stages with an uphill sprint, which is Bini style? Or actually, it's a climb 10 kilometers from the finish line or 5K from the finish line, where punchers go, and then Bini has to survive until the sprint afterwards, which that's the problem, right?
That's the problem. That being said, stage 8, it is like a 1K 3% finish. That is good for Bini. There are some good Bini stages here. I think his team is actually very good. Zimmermann just won German Natty Champs. Barret was so good in the whole year, to be honest. Ruch is actually mega strong. And so I actually think Intermarché, they've not had a good year. It's a good team. I'll wrap I'll go through some other sprinters just quickly. There's actually not that many. This is the death of the sprinters, Benji. Like, where the fuck are the sprint trains? Where are they? Where are the... Okay, Merli and Milan are here with Philipsen, but...
Greenway. Dylan Greenway.
Dylan Groenewegen is here with a lead out of Durbridge, Mezgets. Plapp is here, confirmed. So he's backing up from the Giro. He'll go for stage wins, I assume. O'Connor's here for GC. Dunbar here, climbing GC, I guess. Schmidt for stages. He just won Swiss Natty Champs. It's, to be honest, they've literally just brought their 5 best riders: O'Connor, Plapp, Schmidt, Groenewegen, Dunbar. Does it fit all together? I'm not sure. It's just, but they're just bringing all the best riders.
Exactly, and then I look at other sprinters. Bauhaus is here for Bahrain Victorious. Any chaotic sprint in the past, I would say Bauhaus, but I haven't seen that recently either. It's been a while since the Bauhaus victory at World Tour level has come, if I recall. Then Picnic Postinel, Tobias Lund Andresen was initially supposed to be the lead out for Jakobsen, but then Jakobsen had to step off the bike for an undetermined amount of time for, was it a heart issue? Or, I don't remember.
Artery, maybe.
That sounds like hard to me, but it's not. It's like the leg thing, right?
Yeah,
when it's what
so.
A lot of riders are struggling with due to their sitting position, roughly. But that being said, other sprinters, when I look through the list, then I guess Case Bull you could mention for Astana, or I don't know. I don't really feel it when I name those names. Ackerman, not really feeling it.
Astana's the weird one, Benji. Well, it's not confirmed yet. Because, yeah, it's hard to shadow box and unconfirm, but yeah, they have like Ballerini, Bol, Fedorov, Turnison, but no sprinters, so they kind of need Canter there.
Is it bad that we have not mentioned Arnaud Lee? I don't feel it based on the season so far. He's been not at a good level.
Yeah, he's not so many stages that are good for him. Like stage 8 last year was nailed on for him. He should have won. Some of the stages, like Benji said, are too hard. I've changed my mind.
Oh,
I think the strongest train in the race is Uno X. Like,
I think
the units they have: Jonas Abrahamsen, Magnus Kort, Søren Varskold, Leknesund, Poulgaard, and Stian Friedheim. Then the 2 Johannesson brothers for GC / mountain stages. That's the strongest train, because they're they will have 6 guys, all weighing about 80 kilos, apart from Kort and Leknesund and Varskold more, driving it in a line. I don't know who's the last man. I don't even know who the actual sprinter is, if it's Varskold or Fredheim. I think it might be Fredheim.
Fredheim is the lead out for
Varskold. Yeah, who won Omloop, and I think when it's harder, they'll go for Fredheim.
Or Kort.
Yeah, Manus Kort, indeed. So I think that's actually... Don't be surprised to see their jerseys on the front driving it with 2Ks to go.
I agree that they're a strong sprint train. I still have Little Trek above them. But I agree that they're a very strong team as a whole. I expect Magnus Kort to compete on the hilly stages as well. That's terrain that on paper fits him. Tobias Holland Johannesson, I swear we've said for years that this guy can win a Tour de France stage. I think he can do it again. Maybe he goes for Tour de France GC based on the Dauphiné, because he rode very strongly at the Dauphiné based on his level there. Abrahamsen is a bit of a question mark for the reason that he had was it collarbone fracture a week and a half ago?
Yeah.
Bro's on the Tour de France list. How are we healing so quickly these days? When I have a collarbone fracture, it takes me 6 years. Not really, but relative to the speed at which cyclists are back on the bike is crazy to me sometimes. But it's good to see him back at the Tour de France.
Yep, he'll be in breakaways, I assume. Other sprint, so yeah, they're mostly around going for sprints. And then, yeah, Johannesson would have won the Col Touré stage 6 and 23, were it not for Visma ruining that break.
Typical.
It's typical. Picnic Postinel bring Lund Andresen. They want him consistent in sprints. They bring Naberman, Van den Broek, who, of course, was the star of stage 1 last year. Pavel Bittner also in. I think he'll be the lead out for Andresen. Nicholas Merkel, Flynn, and of course Oscar Onley is the GC guy. I don't know who's quicker out of... Nah, they'll go for Andresen, I think. And Bittner will lead him out.
I think so too, but I don't see a good sprint train here. Pavel Bittner is a good versatile sprinter. I don't see him as a lead out.
I think they'll
right
sprint
now.
with both.
Yeah, UCI points.
So for context, there's a relegation battle at the moment. Picnic, Cofidis are in grave danger. Astana are basically saved, and so they need UCI points. The Tour de France gives a disproportionate amount of UCI points compared to other races. They changed the rules, and now minor stage places of honor in the Tour de France stages, you can rack up a lot of points. Sprinting 6th every day, you can rack up a lot of points. So I think they might sprint with 2, and then Only will go for GC top 10 and trying to also get good stage placements in the harder stages.
Yeah, I'll be honest, Tim Naberman hasn't exactly shouted as the rider that would deserve a TDF position for me. That seems to be the kind of rider where when a team is looking for an 8th rider in a race, you send Julien Vermote on Visma Lease bike, you send Tim Naberman on Picnic Postenel. And I think the reason that Naberman is then sent to Picnic Postenel is because the rest of the Picnic team that is the riders that you might expect at the Tour de France instead are going for UCI points elsewhere. Maybe Sibiu Cycling Tour is next week or in 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, Sibiu, Tour of Austria. I'm not sure if they've added all these races, but indeed, you can't send... You can say, oh, well, Björn Kurt is better than Naberman, but I'd rather have him on the minor calendar scoring points. Kevin Vermarker, who was okay, he's, they're probably going to take him to the minor calendar. So that's a consideration for them. But indeed, other sprinters, Demar at Arkea, they also have, they bring no train. Normally he had a train. They just bring Capio. They bring stage hunters in Costu, Lebert, Venturini, and then Garcia Piano will kind of just do the TT. Kevin Vauquelin's the big star, won a stage last year. He has Christian Rodriguez as climbing support. And there's actually this week one really suits Vauquelin. So, yeah.
Week 3 doesn't.
Week 3 does not. Any other sprinters you want to mention?
No, not really. Do we think Ghana's going to go for sprints? Come on, Ghana. Come on, Philippa.
Nope.
Yeah, I think so too. But it was fun thinking about it for 1 second.
We haven't mentioned Ineos. I guess that they're not confirmed yet. I think the reason why is that Thomas crashed in Swiss, I think. He was hard crashed. The Plus has a bad back. Kwiatkowski hasn't raced since Tirreno. I think he's had knee problems. So I think their team is Ghana for the TT plus versatile sprint stages. Carlos Rodriguez for GC. Foss, I think, is in as an all-round rouleur. But otherwise, I don't think they know the team yet. So
they've got a few days to figure it out, is what we're saying.
Oh, and Axel Laurence. Axel Laurence will be the versatile sprinter.
Yeah.
Sam Watson should go.
Especially after the strength we saw at the British NCs from him. Yeah. But did we mention Felix Gall at any point at the Decathlon AG2R? Because that's the main man there. That is GC focus, obviously. Will he win the Tour de France? No.
Should he be?
Can he top 5 the Tour de France? Should he?
I'm going to help your notes here.
Oh.
They got no sprinter. You got no fans. You got no... They got
Where's Paul Sexas?
Look, Sexy Ass is not ready for the Tour. He's got to do...
Who said that?
Bro, Sexas probably top 10 this Tour de France. Seriously.
Yeah.
It's not even a hot take. He top 10 the Dauphiné. It's a team which brings no sprinter, one sort of puncher. So there's no Godon on this team. Nicolas Prudhomme's been given a rest. We have a KOM discussion in the notes here, Benji. Felix Gall, he should go for the white shirt, for KOM, Benji. He should go for the King of the Mountains. If I'm there, this week one, the 33K flat TT, I'm sorry, Felix Gall ain't making it.
Like, the question is more for me, what is more valuable for the Decathlon AG2R in this race? Is it riding towards a top 10 position that is relatively anonymous, which is a realistic possibility for Felix Gall? Or is it going for KOM, Warren Barguil style in 2019, 2018, where he wins 2 stages from the breakaway, takes KOM? That is definitely possible for Felix Gall from breakaways, etc. But he has to lose time on purpose in week 1, or maybe not on purpose. He might lose the time anyway. But I don't know what his personal goals are, what the team's goals are. If they don't go for GC with Felix Gall, then there's a realistic chance that a different French team beats them as the best GC rider. Oh, big trouble.
I forgot that there's that sort of there's that thing going on.
But it's not a French guy.
Exactly. So they got Bastien.
Where's Paul Success?
Exactly. Where's Success? Okay, here's what they're actually going to do. Armirel will go for KOM from the breakaways. Bissiger will do the TT, first TT, and I don't know. I actually don't know what else he'll do. Positioning. Berthet in the breakaways, climbing, Naesen positioning. Aurélien Paré-Pancher for versatile sprints. Tranchant for the versatile sprints. He was good in the Dauphiné, good puncher. I do think they're missing Godon, but I see a risk, Benji, when you bring versatile sprinters that aren't Mathieu van der Poel, Thibaut Nys, or Wout van Aert.
I agree, but is there a realistic chance where they get a Vendrame stage victory on the Carcassonne stage?
True. And then you want a guy that really can climb and sprint like APP, and you want multiple guys in the breakaway and decathlon, yeah. I think Felix Gall, he won a stage from the break in 23. I think that's where he's best. And this first week, we all know, he came 6th from last in the crosswind stage in Paris-Nice this year, lost 9 minutes. He can't position for shit. So it's a problem for him. EF not confirmed. Speaking of sort of maybe KOM breakaway operators, Nielsen Powell, Harry Sweeney, Ben Healy. I think they'll probably have a versatile sprinter a la Albanese maybe. But otherwise, we don't know their start list. Speaking of versatile sprinters, Aaron Broe, Buchmann, Coquard, Izagirre, Renard, Benjamin Thomas, Damien Touze, Dylan Turns. So they got the puncher and Turns and Aaron Broe, Coquard for the sprints. And so, for Covidus, it's not bad.
I'm saying it again. Dylan Turns was one of the worst transfers I've ever seen in a while.
Yeah.
Reminded me of Fulsang to Israel for a decade.
It was a long time. Movistar, Pablo Castrillo, Enric Mas, Nilsson Oliveira, Rubio, Romeo, Mühlberger, Barta, Garcia Cortina. Garcia Cortina, they hope, again, surviving for a versatile sprint. And then they have guys for the mountain breakaways in Castrillo, Mühlberger, Barta, and Romeo. Even Rubio, perhaps. Enric will try for GC and then see where he ends up. I'd love a Ina Rubio KOM. I would really, really like. Or Castrillo. They could be good for it. So they got quite a few debutants, but the experience of Oliveira and
why not
Mühlberger?
Why not Kevin Vauquelin KOM?
Because he'll go for GC because it's the law.
But the man it would come across so much better, in my opinion. I don't know what his personal beliefs are. That if he wins 2 stages from the breakaway and takes KOM, I'm sorry, but that's much more impressive than getting 9 for 10th.
I agree. But someone has to come 5th or 6th or 7th.
Yeah, just some other scrub.
Yeah, I agree though. Groupama FDJ, Louis Aski, well deserved. Cyril Bart, Roman Gregoire, Madouas, Guillaume Martin for that top 10 bid. Quentin Pacher, Puncher, Penouet, and Clément Rousseau. So they got some punchers in Gregoire. They got a versatile sprinter, Aski. They have maybe a real... in the bunch sprints, they'll go for Penouet, I suppose, and Guillaume Martin will try his best for GC. I think
Talking about it.
Ah, yes.
Guillaume Martin Guillonnet, he achieved a top 15 at La Vuelta last year, top 15 at the Tour de France last year. Then in 2023, he achieved a top 10 at the Tour de France. Then in 2022, he achieved a DNS at the Tour de France, but before then a top 15 at the Giro. Guillaume Martin has got a top 15 this Grand Tour. He will go solely for GC, and he's going to be the one that finishes either 10th or 11th just off the podium, off top 10.
Do you know where he finished in the Dauphiné?
I expect. Oh my God, it's 10th.
10th. He's timing it just right. He knows what he's doing. He's a professional.
I like Guillaume Martin now.
Why not? For him, it's like, I get it. Going for top 10 of the Tour, you are French and the French team, so I understand it. Israel bring Ackerman with Blackmore, Woods. Woods is making a start despite out of Occitanie. Lutsenko, Stewart, Bovin, Louvel, Naelens. Naelens was crazy good a couple of years ago in breakaways, so it's the team for breaks. In the sprints, though, they got a good train for Ackermann. Bovin, Stewart, is good enough. Louvel is solid for Ackermann, who did top 5 a few of the Tour sprints last year. And otherwise, they'll go for the break with Woods and co. There's no real GC rider I see here. Tudor bring both their punchers. They did the bait and switch with the Giro organizers, got the invite, and then said, actually, both of them, Alaphilippe and Hirschi, will be joining the Tour de France. They do bring a sprinter in Dainese. Haven't seen him in a while, with a decent enough train, I would say, of Haller, Lannard, Alaphilippe himself, Trentin, and Meyerhofer, who's a versatile sprinter, as is Trentin. Michael Storer backs up from the Giro top 10, though. He's had a heavy season, so he's here as their... Ooh. There you go.
That's our man.
There you go.
Have we spoken about Martinez and Buitrago yet?
No,
followed one of them the other day. So
we briefly went over Bauhaus, but indeed they bring Fred Wright, Stannard, Gradek, Bauhaus, Moritz, Buitrago, Lenny, and Haig. I think Lenny's your man for KOM, and is he not? He's born
going
for it.
For GC.
No, he's not.
Like
no,
Dauphiné
Lenny
is not the indicator.
Lenny's not going for GC. He knows he can't do it.
When they signed him, they said we're trying to go for the Tour de France podium with Lenny Martinez.
Bro, he finished in echelon 25 in that Pyrenees crosswind stage. Week 1.
He did.
They can say he's going for GC on that first rest day. The reality, they'll open PCS, see where he is, and then say, okay, we got to reevaluate.
I think that's a fair conclusion. I tend to agree there. He's definitely winning a Tour de France stage in my head, though.
Lenny, yeah, he should. Go for it. And I hope he does. But yeah, there's some good guys for KOM if they do want to go for it. I do see some of these quality guys who like Lenny. I mean, the Dauphiné, yeah, they tried to go for GC. He fell out of it very quickly. I think we've gone through all the confirmed teams except for Total, the last one. And that's Bergadeau, puncher, Janier, sprinter, Turgis won the gravel stage last year, Jagat, climber, Delettre all around, Kras, climber, and then 2 punchers in Vacher and Gachinard. And that's all the teams, Benji. We better go into the stage by stage.
Exactly. Every single stage, every single team is what we've gone through. Every single stage is now... We always do this in the previews, going every single stage, talking about the obstacles in the race, talking about a potential rider that could win that race, who are the best riders for that. But I do want to preface this by saying that there's one proper difference compared to the previous Tour de France's. The stages don't have a bonus second sprint or something on the second last climb this year. That's gone. And I gotta say, why?
Why did they take the bonus seconds out?
Yeah, why is it gone?
To try and stop Pogačar?
To try and stop Pogačar. Mate, you just made the green jersey point. We spoke about the green jersey. We didn't mention Pogačar. If you give 50 points on every hill stage, puncher stage, and medium mountain stage, then Pogačar might be in green.
Pogačar has a real chance to win green. We'll go through that. Like, he has a real chance to win green. He should be top 3 favorite for green. Because also he might get greedy. What if Vingegaard's like out? He might think, fuck it, I can go for the intermediate sprints. He might do it. He's got one chance to win it maybe in his career. I think he might go for it. But we've gone through all the teams. Before we get into the stage by stage previews, we need to refuel. I've been refueling during this pod, especially in the heat. It's important to stay fueled. And you'll see in the Tour de France this year, especially on the punchy stages, you will see their bicarb products being used. And that's Morton. Morton have come on board with us. And they've quietly become the fueling choice of the pro peloton. Not just the teams they actively sponsor, but a lot of teams also just buy their products to use them because their hydrogel technology lets you take in more carbs without the gut issues. It's encapsulated in a hydrogel, so it passes through your stomach more smoothly. That means more energy, fewer problems. I've been using it in the heat, and I never have a gastro problem. In fact, not even mild discomfort or anything. Sometimes you're like, I should eat, but I really don't want to. I don't feel like it. These gels, you actually want to because there's no weird flavor, no syrupy mess, just a clean, natural texture, and it's fuel that's actually designed for cyclists. And as I said, in these punchy stages or these important stages, you'll see the riders using their Morton bicarb system. It delivers sodium bicarbonate in a way your body can actually handle, buffering the acid that builds up during efforts. And yeah, if you watch closely in break formation, you might see people eating a bowl of Morton bicarb system. So if you want to try Morton's products, you can get 20% off your first order of Morton's hydrogel products with the code LRMorton2025 at morton.com. That's LRMorton2025 for 20% off, which is a pretty steep discount. I must say, thanks to Morton for coming on board and supporting us and our Tour de France coverage as well. All right, stage one, take us away, Benji.
Yes, sir. Let's start with stage one from Lille to Lille. It is the start just south of Belgium. So lots of Belgians will be at the start looking at the Tour de France as well, which as a Belgian, I love that. 185 kilometers and parcours shouts flat sprint. But question for you, Patrick. Are there echelons possible in this stage or the first stages of this Tour de France?
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, we're in the north of France here. The wind can blow. Even if there's not echelons, it increases the fatigue of what is an otherwise a flat race. It's going to be so nervous in the first place. None of the GC contenders want to do this stage. All the GC contenders wish this was a prologue or I don't know. I think like in the Basque Country, it was so hard, and initially it was so hard last year, the stages actually became safe. That being said, the sprinters, you got to give them something. And they got a chance for once to take the yellow jersey. That increases the chaos, I would say. I mean, imagine taking yellow. Turnison took yellow in a sprint stage in Brussels in 2019. And but I think this is still a sprint, Benji. And if there's crosswinds, if there's flat, there's only one man I want to pick, and that's Tim Merlier.
I think that's a good pick for this first sprint stage. Now, we often go through this discussion where we're like, oh, should I be contrarian against your picks right now? I'm actually not going to do that today. I'll try and pick the riders I actually believe are going to win. So I'm also going to pick Tim Merlier as the winner of the first stage and the first yellow jersey in this Grand Tour. I've looked at the run-in of this stage. I don't know. I feel like Berch might be able to position Merlier in a good position here, and therefore I'm also going for Merlier. But
and if it splits,
and
if it splits, Merlier is making
easier.
It with Bert. Merlier is he don't miss. So,
especially because in a smaller group, it will be even easier to position yourself.
So, and I agree with you. I ain't doing bullshit picks this time. I'm doing like legit what I think.
Okay.
Well, it's not that I don't think. It's more like it's fun to. I enjoy going for 150. A big outsider.
Yeah.
But I'm more going to go with really what the most likely outcome I expect is. Stage 2, by the way, it's a 50-pointer. Stage 2, 50-pointer. It's an uphill finish from Lorient-Planck to Boulogne-sur-Mer. Again, near the north of France or on the coast. This is a much hillier stage, 210 kilometers. We have 2 Category 4s, 2 Category 3s. They're steep in the final. There's a 1.1k 9% climb with 30k's to go. Then there's 3 consecutive hills, beginning 10k's to go, steep 1k 9.5%, followed by 800 meters 8%, followed by an uncategorized one. This is the easiest of the 3 to the finish. This is going to be carnage. And you know what the organizers have tried to do here. They want MVDP and Poggy and the GC guys jumping. And I think that's what they're going to get. And I think Van der Poel, he should have won stage 1 of the Dauphiné with more cooperation. But I don't think he. I feel like because he wants the stage so much, Poggy can gamble, and it benefits him to actually win the stage more.
Oh, I hate you. I hate you so much. I was hoping you'd pick my Van der Poel because I was going to pick Pogačar. Who are you going for? I'm going for Pogačar before you say it.
Yeah, okay, I'll go MVDP then. I think
you said you weren't going to be contrarian. You can't just say it like that. Well, I'm going for MVDP.
Yeah, but it's like 50-50. What chance, Benji, do you see a group of 15 making this finish with Binny?
With Binny, no chance.
With Thibaut
Hills
Nice.
are 2. Nice is a possibility, yes.
Okay. With a Louis Barret. Like, I think this is... But what, you don't think a group of 30 versatile sprint, you think it's more reduced?
I think it's more reduced, but then if you look at a 15-man group, then is there a possibility that a Victor Lafay attack happens?
Yes, so then you have the chance that Aurelien Paré-Pentre or Tranchant can get it right. I think this stage is all about positioning.
Healy?
Who?
Ben Healy?
Yeah, exactly. Ben Healy, Nielsen Paulus. So a
Aramburu?
lot of riders can win this stage, especially as the last 360 meters is 2.6%. I'm happy with Van der Poel. I'm happy because it's not that steep to finish. So, but yeah, I think it's Van der Poel. Do you think there'll be GC gaps? Somewhat like Felix Gall, he's on 30 seconds here.
Well, yes, I also feel like Felix Gall will lose time on a stage like this, but also these are the kind of stages where the run-in towards those hills will matter when it comes to positioning, and that could cause a GC rider to be behind. A crash could happen, GC rider could crash. Stuff like that can happen here, but also, to add on to the green jersey discussion, the winner of the stage gets 50 points. This is the stuff we're trying to say.
Ooh.
This is far from a pure sprint stage.
Yeah, true.
So Pogačar or Van der Poel, or whoever wins this stage, is taking 50 points for green. That's the same as stage 1, by the way.
Stage 3, Benji.
Stage 3 is Valenciennes to Dunkerque, also 50 points, but this one is an actual flat sprint stage, 178 kilometers. I've gone for Merlier on stage 1. I feel like this one might be Jonathan Milan. Yes, there's a hill in the last 30 kilometers, but it's like 2 kilometers at 4%, so Milan should not be in trouble. You said no against Milan, or?
No, against the hill mattering. I'll go with Varnskjold.
Oh. Is that your 150 to 1?
No, because this is properly flat. He's big. He's not that fast though, is he? Like,
no.
Because 3 sprinters have to fuck up for him to win.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. What I said I wouldn't do. Okay, I retract it. I'll go for Philipsen. I think, yeah.
Okay.
Alternate Alperson's train because Jonas Ricard should be good there. Stage 4, another 50-pointer. 174 Ks. Hilly stage. And it begins, to be honest, the last 70 Ks is quite hilly, but it intensifies with no valleys in these hills from 900 meters, 1K, 7%, 2Ks, 5%, 800 meters, 9%, and then a quick descent before an uphill punch in Rouen. And,
Ooh.
I don't really... Yeah, again, it's kind of like stage 2. I'm going to go with Narvaez.
What? But a stage win?
Why not?
Do you not expect Narvaez, if he's in a group with Pogačar, to launch Pogačar for bonus seconds?
True. I mean, the favourites are going to be Pogačar and Van der Poel. And then maybe Thibaut, Naesen, Van Aert, third and fourth favourites. That's the... How does he... Yeah, he could win the sprint.
Is he the guy that on stage 2 can ride away Lafay style because Vingegaard and Pogačar will respond to each other? Not sure.
I don't think so. No. I'm going to change. I'm going to go for Van Aert. Serious pick.
Okay.
Who are you going for?
I'm going for... Yeah, the second last climb is only 5%, so I'd argue this is one where Wout van Aert can get over the climb. It's also not the craziest finishing hill either, so this is the one where you'd argue that Wout van Aert is a good pick. Mathieu van der Poel, 1v1 on an uphill sprint against Wout van Aert. I'd lean towards Mathieu van der Poel right now. I
would too, but I think Van Aert has the advantage that Van der Poel's going to go on the last hill, and maybe he gets neutralized by the GC guys, and Van Aert comes back.
Yeah. I'm going for Mathieu van der Poel. I have to stick with my gut.
He'll be the favorite. He should be the favorite. And to be clear, on these stages, positioning, these are the chaotic positioning stages, same principles as stage 2.
Exactly. Now we go over to stage 5, which is a time trial. Quite different, 33 kilometers. Relatively flat, to be honest. If we take a look, it's a 20-point stage of time trial, so very different. All stages before this are all 4 points, all 50 points, by the way, including stage 4. So that's what we're trying to get across to you, that there's so many hilly parcours with 50 points rewarded for the green jersey. Now, that's stage 5 time trial. If we take a look at the parcours, Patrick, and we dive into the actual terrain, then I look at the map and I see a time trial that is not the most technical outside of Cayenne. Maybe in Cayenne itself, there's a few corners, but once they get outside of the city, which basically they start in Cayenne, go out of the city, then come back to Cayenne, outside of the city, it's relatively straight roads. So it's a relative power time trial. Remco Evenepoel should be the favorite. Filippo Ganna is present as well, so that's a competitor for the crown of the stage victory. But compared to GC riders, Remco should take time here, and quite a bit perhaps.
Yeah, I think the flatter TTs suit Remco. They suit Remco more than ones that have a hill in them, like there was in the Dauphiné. And there he took 20 seconds in 20 minutes on Vingegaard. He took 48 seconds on Pogačar. I think if he takes 1,017 Ks, I mean, Remco could take big time here.
He takes yellow here for me.
Yeah, Remco should take yellow here because unless Ganna has managed to stay in the groups, we didn't mention Ganna. He was good in San Remo, good in the classics. I didn't like what I saw in Baloise Belgium Tour in terms of fighting for position and then sprinting, so I didn't name him in the previous stages. For this TT, it has to be a big goal, and I just think Remco's in better shape, and Remco's the TT god, so I have to pick Remco. And then if he wins it, then he should be in yellow if he hasn't been put on a gap in the previous stages. How much time does he take? I would say on Vingegaard, 35 seconds?
Okay.
40? Maybe up to 50? And then on Pogačar, 30 to 40.
So you're saying Pogačar loses less time than Vingegaard?
Normally, that's what we expect in a flat TT. In not just Dauphiné is one data point, but going back 2-3 years.
I would expect the same if I think a blank slate. Dauphiné is the skew, is the one that skews my view a little bit, where Vingegaard had a solid time trial there on the flat. He was better than Pogačar, but for Pogačar, I'm not sure I can count that Dauphiné time trial. That's a time trial where I'm not sure. It's like one of those I'm not sure I could count
Is that really going to be what his TT level?
Point?
Is that really going to be his TT level on stage 5? I wouldn't expect it.
I wouldn't expect it here. So I expect Pogačar and Vingegaard to be relatively close to each other though on this time trial. So I'm looking at Remco to be the one that benefits from this, and I'm also looking at 30 to 40 seconds when it comes to the gap there. If it's more, great for Remco. If it's less, still good for Remco, but this is where he wants to take a gap on the others if he wants to fight for the crown. He's going to need more than 40 seconds to win the Tour de France, though, once we get to the mountains. But more importantly, he can take down on Lipovic, who also had a not so great time trial at the Dauphiné. He finished on 56 seconds of Remco in that time trial. So I don't know. Lipovic is not a terrible time trialist, but I expect a minute plus.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be big gaps. 33k TT with it's going to take them 36 minutes plus. That means big gaps. So double the length almost of their Dauphiné TT. Stage 6 from Bayeux to Ville-Normand. Remco in yellow, perhaps. 201k hill stage. A lot of accumulated climbing, over 3,500 meters. And hard start. It's hilly all day, to be honest. We don't know the weather yet. Could be hot, might not be. The final is a 1.2k, 7% climb with 4k's to go is where it crests. A descent, about a k of flat, and then another punch to the line, about 800 meters, 7%. Who controls this stage?
Well, Alpecin will try and control for much of Van der Poel. That, I think, is an option. I think you would argue that UAE can control this stage in an ideal world for them, where Pogačar can take bonus seconds on Vingegaard, but Pogačar is the best climber in the race on paper anyway, so he doesn't necessarily need to spend his entire team trying to control a Muur de Bretagne stage anymore in week 1. That's the difference we have from previous years, right? When it comes to UAE, more confidence that Pogačar should destroy the rest in the mountains.
Remember last year? Everybody expected them to control for the stage win on stages 1 and 2 in Italy, and they didn't. And
he did for Bettiol.
He did for Bettiol, and in stage 2, Van der Poel jumped in the break himself on the San Luca stage. I'm not sure
Van der Poel in the break.
I'm not sure Van der Poel's so confident from the peloton on this stage, because that amount of climbing.
Historically, a peloton thing. I want to see it a peloton thing, my friend. Come on, give it to me.
On which stage?
Muur de Bretagne.
But I'm talking stage 6.
Oh yeah, you're right. Fair.
But stage 6 is way harder than stage 7. I think stage 6 is going to be breakaway, and I think we're going to have all the French puncheurs, Gregoire, Vauquelin, hopefully, Tranchant.
I think Vauquelin will be too close in GC at this point.
Does anyone really care?
I agree with you. He's the kind of rider where a UAE and Visma might look at it and say, okay, if they're in the yellow jersey right now by 4 minutes, I don't care.
Thibaut Nice, Simone Velasco or Champoussin from Astana if he's on the list. Alaphilippe. This is the French puncher. I mean, that being said, now that I've named so many teams who might be delusional enough to control the break if they miss it. Like if Tudor missed the break, what do you have to lose but to pace for Hirschi and Alaphilippe on this finish?
Or put them in the breakaway.
Yeah, I would say put them in the breakaway because if you go to this finish, Poggy and Van der Poel should win.
Yeah, I agree with you, by the way, that I don't actually see Alpecin controlling this. I think it's breakaway. I think they will go in the breakaway and try and do it that way. It's like stage 7 of the 2021 Tour de France, 2022 Tour de France. Mathieu van der Poel and Van Aert both being in the breakaway. That's the vibes I have here. And those are the riders that will be looked at. Thibaut Nice might be a rider that is being looked at, but I think he might have Simmons in the break as well. So I think Simmons is a good guy for this stage as well.
So, yeah, wow. I think it's going to be a big break. It's a lottery. I'll go French. I'll go Alaphilippe.
I would love that, by the way.
He actually looked in decent shape in Swiss against proper GC riders. If he's in a break on a hill stage and he keeps his cool, big if, he's got a chance. But I think this is the first break victory or possibly, and I think it's Alaphilippe.
I think Hirschi is not looking that good in the run-up to this race, so I fear more. I see Alaphilippe as a great pick for this race. Mamma mia, who will I pick for this? Louis Barret is also an option for stuff like this.
Gregoire.
I'm going for, I said it before, I'm going for Quinn Simmons from the break.
There you go.
Their mistake would be betting everything on Thibaut Nice in the breakaway here. I think need to...
from the peloton.
Well, true. Actually, very true. Yeah, I'm going for Quinn Simmons for this one. And that brings us to stage 7, which is another hilly parkour, which the first part of the parkour is relatively flat in this one, stage 7, from Saint-Malo to Mur-Bretagne, which that name might ring a bell. 196 kilometers, so a long stage to control, just like the last one. 50 points. So the stage you just mentioned is 30 points, by the way. The next one, Mur-Bretagne, is 50 points. So I would like to see the peloton go to the finish unit being a peloton thing. And I think this stage is more easily, between quotes, controllable for Alpecin than stage 6 is. So that's why I think Alpecin will go in the break with Van der Poel on stage 6, and will try to go from the peloton on stage 7. Mur-Bretagne is also where Mathieu van der Poel won in 2021. In doing so, taking bonus seconds on the second last Mur-Bretagne, which is also once again the case. 2 times Mur-Bretagne in the last 15-ish kilometers, 20 kilometers. And this time there's no bonus seconds on top, so the action will be on the final climb of this one. Mur-Bretagne, if you didn't know, is not the shortest hill either. It's kind of hill where
it's 5 minutes.
Drags on a little bit. It's 2 kilometers at about 7%. And we've had some different situations on this climb in the past. Van der Poel rode away and ended up winning that way. We've had Viermoos doing something similar in maybe 2015, 2016 for HDC La Mondiale. Nobody was looking at a rider like Viermoos. They were all looking at each other. And then Viermoos attacked, and the riders like Dan Martin weren't able to catch him by the finish line. So it's actually a bit of a tactical climb. But does the world of cycling 2025 change that completely, where the 2 GC teams now have the punchers, unlike 2016? 2016, we're talking about GC riders trying to survive Mur-Bretagne, trying to not lose a minute like Thomas has, I think, at some point. And then I feel like UAE and Visma will be taking up the ranks on this climb, trying to get their riders into position. In doing so, positioning themselves to try and go for a stage win when it comes to Pogačar, plus Van der Poel when it comes to Alpecin. But when it comes to Visma Lease bike, Vingegaard or Van Aert?
Not Van Aert got cooked by Van der Poel in 21.
Yeah, but I agree. I think I am feeling that on a stage like this, Van Aert should probably be locked to Vingegaard, which As a Belgian, I'm probably getting my passport ripped up right now, but
come on, it's 5 min like uphill.
Yep.
What's the chance? It's steep at the start as well. I mean, if a big break goes, Van Aert can win from it. I don't see a break winning because it's easier. But then again, if a big break goes with Abrahamsen, some big engines in it, that's the chance for X with Anders Hahn Johannesson or someone in the break.
Yeah.
If you're Vokala, you want the break to go and you want to win from the break. You can try to be competitive from the peloton, but they're hoping the break goes. And probably this might be more interesting break formation than you think. Again, because who's going to control all day?
I think on this one, it's going to be Alpecin. On the one before, I expect Alpecin to go in the break. On this one, I expect Alpecin to control.
Yeah. I mean, they might have that idea, but then suddenly you're realizing you're running out of guys and you got to go in the break yourself. But
the benefit is that their entire team can focus on it.
I think the break wins 200 Ks. I really think the break will go, and UAE don't want to control it. And
okay,
I'm going with Vokala from the break.
Possible. I'm doubting between 3 riders. Obviously, it's Pogačar, Remco Evenepoel, and Van der Poel. I am going to pick, factually, objectively, I wouldn't pick Remco, but I've got a feeling. I've got some feeling that something on this climb can happen. I've said it. It's a bit tactical, this climb. I think Remco Evenepoel might win on Muur de Bretagne. And the only downside I see there is that his positioning at the foot of the climb will be shit, based on what I've said.
Yeah, but it's a wide road. This is not a positioning climb.
Yeah, and there's time to move back up.
Yeah.
So I'm going Remco.
From the peloton, of course, Poggy's the favorite, followed by Van der Poel, equal favorites. My dark horse is Oscar Onley. I think if there's anyone that can win via Moj style, who gets underrated, who's actually very, very strong on these efforts, it's Onley. Yeah. He's won on Wilanga. I think Onley could win if a lot of things went his way.
Is it like the way O'Connor won at the top of Jais, that kind of vibe?
Yeah, but Narvaez also could just win.
Yeah, but I agree with you that Narvaez has a level, but I just don't see OE picking Narvaez over Pogačar at any point when Pogačar can get bonus seconds.
Yeah, I agree. Stage 8. So yeah, I really am not sure Alpecin will ride for 200 Ks on the front. Yeah. I'm not sure.
Fair.
Depends what helped. It really depends what help they get, who misses the break, etc. Stage 8 from Saint-Main, Le Grand to Laval. Laval was where the TT finished in 21, and stage 5, 171 Ks. This is a sprint stage, a little bit rolling terrain, but it's just a 1K, 3% uphill sprint. I would like to pick Binny. I don't think his shape is where it was last year. I'd like to pick DeLee for the same reasons I can't pick him. And so I'm going with Merlier because I think Merlier on the false flat uphill sprints is nasty.
My pick for the stage is Jasper Philipsen. He's more versatile, in my opinion, than Merlier. And if I look at the final kilometers, then this is the kind of vibe where if a Mes Pedersen is here 3 years ago, we'd shout Mes Pedersen at this stage. And I feel like Philipsen was close in those stages, but didn't necessarily win. I think this is a stage where Jasper Philipsen can win. I agree that Binyam is the first name that pops into mind when seeing this stage. I do think this is different than the first stage of Balwaza Belgium Tour. The Knokke High stage with the uphill ramp. I don't think we can compare that to be the same. I do see Merlier as a possible winner, but I think Philipsen's going to beat him. So we have to pick different riders anyway.
Are we underrating Milan?
Well, we saw Milan being very good at the first stage of UAE Tour, which was an uphill drag sprint.
That was proper
So it's
uphill.
possible. What do you mean?
Well, that was like 6%.
It was. Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe the Dauphiné has just skewed our opinion on Milan.
Yeah.
Maybe we're underrating Milan as a whole just because of the Dauphiné, which is possible, but it happened, so I can't ignore it.
Yeah. To be honest, I actually do think Milan is more likely than Philipsen, now that I really think about it.
And not the Merlier?
It's a coin. To be honest, it's a coin toss.
Okay. Hi.
Stage 9.
Next up, we've got stage 9 from Chinon to Châteauroux. That is a flat sprint stage, and the final straight is 1.5 kilometers long. Can I be honest? The profiles that we're looking at, the La Flamme Rouge profiles, they actually have it on like the profile now, how long the final straight is. And that is actually useful to see. Are you seeing the same, or am I inventing this?
No, I see it. I don't know who that benefits. I would say it benefits Merlier, because it's a bigger chance there could be a wave, rather than if there's loads of corners and Trek established front position, they can dominate it with their lead out. He needs to shoot from behind. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Merlier this one.
I'm having coin toss between Merlier and Milan. I'm going to go for Merlier as well. I've got that feeling. But the next stage is one where that's the good vibes, right?
Well, the good vibes? What do you mean?
It's action, buddy. Action.
We should have had action up to this point already. We've gone through about 25 hill stages where Poggy's supposed to be launching.
More action.
Even more action. So we have not had a climb in this race so far longer than 5 minutes for 9 stages. I checked. That's since maybe before 2020, but in 2020 onwards, there's always been longer climbs. And this stage, there are some longer ones, but not by much. 165 Ks, 4,500 meters climbing from Eneza to Le Mont d'Or, 30-point stage for the green jersey. But I just read you some statistics that make it sound like a mountain stage. There is no valley in this whole stage. It's up and down all day, steep parts of these climbs. I assume we're near the, maybe south of Clermont-Ferrand, north of Toulouse, near the Massif Central. It finishes with a 3.3K, 7.5% climb. There's some longer ones like 5K, 6%, 5K, 7%, 4K, 7% in the middle third. It's a brutal medium mountain stage.
Is this French LBL parkour-wise? It's nothing similar parkour-wise, but it's like climb length-wise?
I think they're longer.
A little bit, eh?
In general, yeah, they're a bit longer.
Trying to find something that compares to it, but it's just a medium mountain festival. That's how I describe it. 30 points available at the finish here. And this is the stage where I have the vibes of breakaway forms, large breakaway forms on the first climb, a GC rider or a secondary GC rider from maybe one of the big teams, or from an outsider like O'Connor, for example, comes to mind instantly. We'll try to slip in the breakaway. We'll try to take time through the breakaway on the stage. And I'm having such O'Connor vibes when it comes to this stage. But do we have second GC leader on Visma Lisa bike feelings on this as well? Because this is the stage where if you're going to use multi-leader strategy at any point in this Grand Tour, they're still relatively close in GC if they didn't have any crashes or bad luck or stuff like that in the first week. This is where you'd use it, I would feel it. If you feel like you believe in your multi-leader strategy, this is where you'd use it.
Well, yeah, Jorgensen should be good on the medium mountains. Simon Philip Yates is good there. Even Sepp Kuss, to be honest, is not bad on these sort of stages. The danger is, this is a good Pogačar stage. So do you risk opening up that can of worms?
You have to. Every stage is a good Pogačar stage.
Exactly. If a man has no weaknesses, then you better try something.
Especially
where your team's strong.
Especially because of that team aspect. You point at it perfectly there, where if we look at UAE, we've spoken about it at the start. It's a very strong team, but Pogačar is an even stronger rider than UAE is as a team for me. So because of that, this is the kind of opportunity where you try and see if there's a vulnerability in the team by going mayhem in the first breakaway formation with your secondary GC riders. So this is the stage where, yes, large probability that it does not work, that UAE can control it. But at the end of the day, it's an opportunity. And you can't leave opportunities to the side if there's a chance, a very small chance that it might work. So instead of attacking Pogačar in break formation here, you're attacking UAE as a team, seeing whether they can control the madness that you present, because it won't be just you attacking. If you attack with a secondary GC rider, let's say Simon Yates for an example, he goes into the breakaway of 10-15 riders with other riders from other teams. UAE needs to choose between, okay, do we send a rider with that? Do we send Adam Yates with Simon Yates and create that scenario up the road? Do we start riding behind it with Marc Soler, with Polit, etc. from the get-go, and we try and control it the entire day? What is the response from UAE? That's what you want to try and figure out at the start of the stage.
But who else is jumping? Florian Lipovic. I mean, he loves that. He loves that sort of
Yeah.
racing. That's how he got his time gap in the Dauphiné. He went in the breakaway. He'll be like, happy days. I'm jumping in. O'Connor. That's all he's looking for is these sort of stages to do that. It's where how he improves his GC position or goes for the stage win.
Romeo
for Movistar, who won that stage I mentioned, that Lipovic was in the breakaway. And then that's not to mention then you're going to have mega strong riders going for the break. Healy, Sweeney.
Van der Poel for green.
Armirel, Van der Poel, going in as well. Louis Barret, Simmons,
Boss.
Schkelmoser. Like, if Lipovic is in, why can't Schkelmoser be in?
Yep.
If Lipovic is in, why can't Oscar Only be in?
What if Pogačar goes in? Panic stations.
If Pogačar can go in, then why can't Enric Mas go in?
Remco? Does Visma respond or do they let UAE clean it up?
I think Visma, everything's UAE's problem because Pogačar's the favorite. That's the problem.
But on the road, that's sometimes different. The Diaz might decide.
Exactly.
I'm getting scared.
Remember last year when Yates were in the crosswind break that was never going anywhere?
Yeah.
And they were like panicking. It's like, yeah, but.
I think Remco should try it once. Even if he's in yellow.
Of course he should. Make them panic.
But then the break might not ride with him.
That's the thing. If you have too many big guys, then the break just won't go. And it starts. I think it's a very interesting stage. Can't remember who I picked.
I can't remember either who you picked.
I'm going with Luke Plapp.
I like that pick. I like the idea of an Ivan Romeo. I like the idea of a Ben O'Connor. I'm going for Romeo though because he's been on fire lately. By the way, Romo's not in the team. Is that because I think something happened? He had a heat stroke or something at the Spanish road race, I think. And I don't know if that's the reason that he's not there, but I was expecting him at the Tour de France, you know?
He wasn't good in Swiss. I presume he did altitude after Romandy, but yeah, he's not. He wasn't as good in Swiss, and then he DNF'd both the Spanish Natty Champs TT and road race. So, indeed, he would have been he was good in the heat and down under. So I thought he would be good in heat. But I agree with Benji. I think it's like a 65 to 70 kilo GC rouleur type guy who can get in the break, and do the climb.
Blackmore from the breakaway is also an option for this.
Nah, I don't see it.
He's 65 to 70 kilometers, but he's not a GC rider.
Give me Alexei Lutsenko.
I like your style, but
this to the stage, I'm legit like being an old man sitting down and just start throwing names and be like, yeah, that's a great name. Ben Healy.
There's lots of names like this. I just hope that we get a GC move at the start of the stage because that can open up the stage completely.
That's the point of the stage. We don't have any mountains. That
makes it the Sepkus Vuelta 2023 stage that he wins.
That's week 1 in the books. It's 10 stages because the organizers wanted stage 10 to fall on the 14th of July, which is a national holiday in France. So we have a rest day after 10 stages. Normally it's 9. But stage 11, Benji, the hills continue. It's the same theme in the Toulouse stage after the rest day.
That is correct indeed, but it's a bit of a different stage than stage 10, though. It's a parcours where, there's a hill in the first half of the race, 1.5k, 5.9%, and maybe that's part of break formation, but it's not an insane climb either. So break formation will be the part of the first half of the stage, though. In the second half, that's where the climbs continue with 1, 2, 4 categorized climbs, but I'd argue there's 3 more that are uncategorized, where they're basically hills of 1 to 2 kilometers at 5 to 7% is the average, roughly. The last one is 800 meters at 9%, though. This is a lot of up and down to control. 156 kilometers is a shorter stage, though. So do we expect breakaway fighting for the stage win or peloton controlling it for Van der Poel style characters? I'm kind of leaning to breakaway unless we consider this a stage where Binyam might survive and stuff.
Yeah, because this hill's actually further from the finish. It's 8Ks, 9Ks, the crest, rather than being 1, 2Ks from the finish. It really depends on what's the pattern of the race up to this point? What does Thibaut Naes look like? Has Van der Poel been dominating? If Van der Poel's won all these sprints, then the break is much more likely to win.
Yeah.
If it's 50-50 and Benny's in great shape, I don't know. Maybe he can win. So I think this is a sprint, and I'm going to go with Jesus.
Okay.
Go with...
Ooh.
I kind of want to go with Philipsen, actually.
Well, I think Philipsen is the most likely of the three, because we're talking about 7 hills in the last 40 kilometers. That's quite a bit of climbing. And Jasper Philipsen is the more versatile. The question is also, you said it, Roger van der Poel, etc. What is the green jersey situation? Is it at a point where to win it, they need to decide between Philipsen and van der Poel? It's a possibility. So I think that
you're right.
Cannibalization problem might also register who might actually be going for the stage for Alpecin in the first place. They can also just go for both, eh? Van der Poel in the breakaway, Philipsen from the peloton? No?
Exactly. I think you're right. I'm now leaning more towards break than I thought, mainly because, no team might be too confident, so I'll go with Bastien Tranchant winning a flat sprint from a breakaway.
I just accidentally ate an ice cube and it's hurting my teeth a lot.
Benji's finished.
Nonetheless, we're going to the next stage. Actually, it's your stage, buddy.
Stage 12 from Auch. Benji just had an ouchie. So we're starting in Auch to Halterkam, 181 Ks. Is that correct? It's a 30-point stage? No, that can't be right, Benji, for green.
It is. I checked. I double-checked. I triple-checked. Oh, am I? No, wait. I don't know. This might be a 20 points one. This might be a 20 points one. Mont Ventoux is a 30 points one. Not kidding. Mont Ventoux is a 30 point stage.
This one is a 30 point. This is a 20 point. I was like 30 points. 181 Ks, like 3,500 meters climbing. A bit hilly for the first 122 Ks. Then they do the Col du Soulor. We finally have some real mountains. 12 Ks, 7.5% descent. Then the Col des Bordeurs. 3.3 Ks, 8.1%. Another descent, no real valley. And then the Halterkam, 13.5 Ks, 8% is a bit irregular. There's a 5K, 9% section in the middle. It levels off. It's on a reasonably sized road for most part. This is where Vingegaard dropped Pogačar in 2022 with the lead out from the breakaway of Van Aert winning the stage. That was in the third week. I think this is Plat Day. This looks to me like UAE lead out.
Yeah.
And Poggy wins the stage and takes time.
I think so too. Tadej Pogačar wins on Hautacam is also my feeling. Like, Col du Soulor is a proper climb. The second, well, you said 3 climbs. I feel like the Col de Bordère, that smaller climb, is kind of just a bump in the descent if we're really talking about that climb. Because, yes, it's a short climb. It's quite steep, but it's not going to actually make the biggest effect on the race, I would expect. Unless someone wants to try something unexpected, maybe. But I agree that UAE is the one that is perhaps going to control this from the peloton and will go for it. Whether it's from the peloton or, like, obviously, Pogačar will not win from the breakaway. What I'm trying to say is, whether the break wins or the peloton wins, Pogačar can take time on the competition on Hautacam either way. That's how I feel about this finish. And I think there's other stages where, because the Peyragudes time trial, a mountain time trial, is on stage 14, it also gives an option to use domestiques for UAE on the stage 12, for example, to save some, I don't know, to save some, what do you call it?
But no, the TT's the next day. This begins the 3-day block. Peyragudes TT stage 13, and then Super Bagnier is 14. This begins the 3-day block. What
I'm trying to say is, because that time trial is in between, UAE might be okay with spending the domestiques on stage 12 is what I was trying to say.
Because they get a rest day the next day.
The stage numbers incorrectly, my bad. That's how I feel. So Pogačar wins this, I agree.
Yeah. Stage 13 then is the TT.
Yeah. I feel like I'm missing a stage in the notes, by the way. So we're going to have to figure that out by the time we get to it. So Luke, get on it while we keep on podcasting.
No, you're good. You haven't missed one.
Okay, stage 13, Loudanvielle to Peyragudes, mountain time trial, 10.5 kilometers, a 20-point stage. First 2.5 kilometers is basically flat, and it gradually starts going uphill until it's actually the proper climb. And Peyragudes is a climb with 8.1 kilometers at 7.6%, but it's also the climb that you might remember where Fabio Aru and Romain Bardet slashed Chris Froome on the final steep slopes back in the day in 2017? 16? You're probably right with 16. But we also saw Pogačar beating Vingegaard there on the Tour de France 2022 on the stage where Bjergen McNulty went crazy at the start of the stage. This time trial, I have two feelings about this, and I want to discuss this for a second. How do we look at a short time trial, a pure mountain time trial, on paper a pure watt per kilo test, but on the other hand, you're pacing it yourself. So when I saw the stage initially, my thought process was, okay, this Paragood mountain time trial, just a pure watt per kilo test from the start of the time trial to the end, that is going to be the highest watt per kilo we've ever seen in the sport of cycling in terms of the best climbing performance. But
no, I don't think so.
Does the fact that you don't have teammates counter that?
I think it's more that if Pogačar's the best ever,
yeah,
I think he's more comfortable on a road bike in almost a road stage.
Is this not going to be a road bike, is what you're saying?
Yeah, but there's also like a flat part. So there's still 3.5 Ks. So he still has to push on that. Like that's still 4 minutes he has to push on, which is a decent proportion of this TT. If it's a 25-minute TT, it's still 16% on the flat. So that's not flat, it's rolling, but you know what I mean.
Because what stage do we then see as the one that might break records in this Tour de France? Mont Ventoux?
Nah, because then it's too long. I think Hautacam.
Okay. Despite the Solar being before that, I see it to be honest.
Yeah, but he doesn't get tired.
Yeah.
It's like Niels Pollitt pulling at 5.3 watts per kilo doesn't make Pogačar tired.
Do we expect the 2024 records to be broken in this Tour de France?
Depends. If the level, the level between Vingegaard and Pogačar has to be close enough that Pogačar feels the pressure and has to go all out.
Yeah.
But not so close that Vingegaard is on his wheel. Because if they're actually together, then you don't do a TT from top to bottom. Plateau de Bay, Jorgensen did the first 10 minutes crazy fast. Vingegaard then did the next 12 minutes just as fast as he could. And then Pogačar did the next 15 minutes as fast as he could. There was just perfect pacing. So it's actually unlikely that happens unless, And if Vingegaard's nowhere near Pogačar, he won't go all in. So, but I think Hautacam, maybe very good. I think Vingegaard wins this stage because Pogačar's TTs, I'm not 100% convinced.
Is it because of the Dauphiné TT? Are you letting it influence you?
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah. I'll choose not to for the reason that I expect this time trial to be on a road bike, right?
Yeah, I mean, Pogačar, they'll be on the road bike. It's what? That final ramp's what? 500 meters, like 14%?
Yeah.
It's even gearing-wise. And you're moving it around. So
time trial setup-wise, it's kind of odd because the first 4 minutes they're going to have to be in a time trial position on a regular road bike as aero as possible, which they might not necessarily be used to training. They always train on either riding regularly on a road bike versus riding aero on a TT bike. So
that's what I mean. That's why I don't expect necessarily that they break all the records here. They'll break the Paragood record, but do they do their best ever? I'm not sure.
Also, do you know if... Because puppy paws are banned in a road race. Do we know if it's banned in a time trial?
Not banned.
Ooh. Will the UCI commissary know that, though? That's the question.
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that one. So I picked Vingegaard. Who are you picking?
Pogačar.
Stage 14 from Pau to Le Champ-Super-Barnier, 182 Ks. This is the highest, hardest mountain stage so far. 5,000 meters climbing. Pretty long, to be honest. We do the Tourmalet, 19 Ks, 7.5%. It's the Souvenir Godet, of course, over 2,000 meters, 2,100 meters, after a 70K valley. Descent, about a 5K, 4% false flat uphill. Then the Col d'Aspin, 5K, 7.5%. It's category 2. Descent, another false flat uphill valley. Then the Perasur, 7Ks, 8%. Then a descent, no valley. And then the Luchon Super Barnier, which is 12.6k, 7.5%. And it's a little bit irregular. It's 5k, 8% maybe to the finish. It's a hard mountain stage. Yeah, I don't know what more to say, really. It's just a brutal mountain stage.
The thing when I look at stages like this, and when I think about what could potentially Visma Leasebike do against Tadej Pogačar, in 2022 and 2023 was making these kind of stages hard as possible and then trying to build on that. I am at the moment not on the belief that will necessarily work, but it's still kind of their only option to throw shit at the fan and hope that it sticks. That expression makes no sense, but just take it and leave it. I do expect Visma Leasebike to make this stage as hard as possible. If Pogačar, as we said, well, you said Vingegaard would win the time trial, but in my scenario, Pogačar is ahead of Vingegaard in GC by quite a bit. And in doing so, I would see Visma Leasebike making this as hard as possible. And therefore, it will make it harder for a breakaway to perhaps win in this stage. So I think Visma throws everything at the race and Pogačar wins.
I think it's I think Pogačar winning this stage is most likely. It's not that hard to finish. Like, it's just a 30-minute climb. And even if the upset of Vingegaard following him happens,
yeah,
he can still win the stage. So, but the most likely outcome is him winning with a gap. So, yeah, say Pogačar is the favorite for that stage. For KOM, tactically, the HC climbs give 20 points. The category 1s give 10. The category 2s give 5. These are maximum points.
What is the Souvenir Godet? The one on top of the Tourmalet?
So if you are Amiral, for example, you let's assume we all think, not to get political, but these two fucking countries have been fighting each other for so long, they don't even know what they're doing anymore. To Benji's point, Visma or UAE are just going to nuke every stage, and probably a GC rider will win, probably Pogačar. If you want to win KOM, you gotta get the early climb points, and that's Tourmalet 20-pointer, then a Cat 2 and a Cat 1, and then of course on Super Barnier, Poggy catches you, see you later. And on Altacam de Soulor, it's a 4, a 1, and a 2. So, yeah, you have to be in these breaks, mopping up these points.
For sure, bud. Then I look at, you have to try and go for these breakaways and for the first 3 climbs, like you say, to try and get
possible.
KOM.
I think it's possible this year.
And there's also enough stages beforehand for a lot of potential GC riders to be out of GC and fight for KOM, which might give an interesting battle there. But there's also enough finishing climbs in this race for Pogačar to also win KOM. So it's going to be an interesting battle. There's no double points for the GC riders on the last climb this time. So that's a good thing for me, because I'm an old school traditionalist in this sport, my friend. So Thomas Veuclair and Nicolas Vaugondi and David Moncoutier and all these French dudes in the breakaway going for KOM points, that is how I grew up. I want that shit on my TV.
100%. KOM should go to some skinny French climber that can't position for shit. And we're looking at you, Lenny Martinez. Bring us back to that.
Yeah.
So, or Felix Gall or Amara, whatever. And listen, sorry to go back to stage 10 has 40 points available, more or less. That's 2 HC climbs because they've made every medium mountain a Cat 2. So you've got to be in the break there.
After the stage, if Pogačar wins, social media is going to be like, oh, he's too greedy.
I think he might throttle it back then.
Sorry, I was sneezing there for a second. But he might get a... Are you saying that he might hold himself back for it?
We'll get to Mont Ventoux in a second. Do stage 15, the transition stage from Muret to Carcassonne first.
Okay, I will, my friend. Muret to Carcassonne is one of my captivating stage profiles of this Tour de France. First half is basically flat, and in the second half there's 3 categorized climbs. Forget the first one, even though the first one will matter for breakaway formation, actually. So don't forget the first one. Third cat climb, 1.7 kilometers at 6%. Then after that, we've got a 6-kilometer climb at around 6%. So those two, if the break has not formed yet, which that's after 60 kilometers. So the break might have formed yet. If it hasn't, break might form there. After that, we've got a descent, and then in the second in the last third of the stage, we've got the last climb, Pas du Sang climb, 3 kilometers at 9.2%. That's a steep climb. But it's got this like Rochefoucauld and LBL. It doesn't end at the top of Rochefoucauld. After that, there's like this uitloper, we call it in Belgium, this continued ascent. That's what we have here as well. Of like, I don't know, the profile says 15 kilometers, 4%. I think that might include the Pas du Sang. So I'd say it's less steep, the actual extension on top. So lower gradient there. But it tops with 40 kilometers to go in the stage. Is it me, or does this kind of feel like a BTEC Polarin stage?
Nah, I think this is them trying to design a break transition stage in the modern era.
Okay.
Where if you're the sprinters, you look at it and you know you can't do it.
Yep.
But then it's not hard enough that Poggy gets interested. So to me, this is a very nicely poised battle between the climbers or climbing rouleurs who need to get the gap on that 3K 9% climb, and then the Wout Van Aerts of the world in the breakaway. And then you got 40Ks of flat where it can play. It's like the stage Campenaerts won last year. I think, or Pollard even won. So this could be a number of guys. I'm going to go with George Zimmerman.
I like the pick of Georg Zimmerman. I really do. In his team, Louis Barret is also a pick that you could throw forward here.
They'll be going all in for this stage.
They should. That's for sure. In other teams, I'm expecting Ivan Romeo on the break again. Luke Plapp probably as well. But 3 kilometers at 9% is a little bit steep for Plappy, I would say. I am thinking about Astana on paper. You've got Velasco and so forth. Those guys need to be in the breakaway going for the stage. Whether it's a Blackmore at Israel, for example, that's also a rider for the breakaway.
Aaron Baru.
Lotto, Van Eetveld, I'm feeling as well. But he crashed at the Belgian champs. I don't know what the consequences are there. You said Aramburu. It's an option. The profile would fit him, but knowing him, he'll get over the top with 2 other riders and he'll start his lead out for himself at 400 meters to go and lose the sprint. So I'm going for, I want to say Julien Alaphilippe, but can he drop everyone on 3 kilometers, 9% and then do a 40 kilometer solo? I'm not feeling it. So is there a world in which we see a Fuga de la Fuga before that climb making it over the top of the Pas du Sang?
Yeah, it's really
possible.
It could be so many. It could be so many, right? I mean, so many guys. Mauro Schmidt from Jayco, he'll be circling this stage. Jonas Aguirre, Jasper Stuyven, Quinn Simmons, Gregoire. It's going to be a big break. So Frank van den Broek, Fuga de la Fuga.
Wout van Aert will be in the breakaway, but will not win the stage, is my prediction for this. Ben Healy wins.
Ben Healy, could happen. Could happen. That brings us to the second rest day. Now to stage 16 from Montpellier to Mont Ventoux. It's a Unipuerto, 171 Ks, a 30-pointer for the green jersey, which is quite a lot.
But the website of the Tour de France says 20 points, according to some Twitter users shouting it at me. But the roadbook says 30 points.
Okay, maybe they changed it to 20 points. Here we will see, because if Pogačar's won 3 or 4 stages and he has a 5-minute lead on GC, politically he has to let Lenny Martinez win this stage.
Tadej Pogačar wins the stage because he was dropped by Jonas Vingegaard in 2021, I think, on the Mont Ventoux, and this is his revenge era. So every single climb that he was dropped on, he will want to win. That's my prediction for this entire tour.
I think you're right. I think there will be the people on the rest day saying, stop winning, and then he'll win. And that's not good it's an HC climb, so there's 20 KOM points available. But yeah, I'm still going to change my mind.
Ooh. What is our man thinking? Post it in the comment section below.
Nothing really going on in my brain. Like
I have no clue what you were trying to say, actually.
From the breakaway, of course, Lenny Martinez has to. So hopefully it's Lenny.
He needs a tug buddy to get in the breakaway, though.
Yeah.
So I'm going for UAE controls the stage and Tadej Pogačar wins. I have lost count of the amount of Pogačar stages I have so far, but I fear that it's not the last one on my list here. Stage 17 is Boulogne to Valence. 160 kilometers. It's got 2 categorized climbs, one that is 66 kilometers into the stage, 3.7 kilometers at 5%, and one that is 60 kilometers, 50 kilometers, no, actually 43 kilometers before the finish line, and that is 3.9 kilometers at 3.5%. This is a sprint for me, and that sprint is won by... Do we have a feeling of who is the best sprinter after 2 weeks in a Grand Tour? Because Merlier doesn't have the best track record there, no?
And the Giro, he won 2 sprints later, but this is a much harder race. It's a much harder race. The way they're going to race these mountains, I mean, him and Bert will be lucky to make it, honestly, to this point. So I'm not going sprint anyway because I'm going with Magnus Cort from the breakaway.
Oh la la. I like your approach, sir. I think it's going to be a sprint, and I think Milan versus Philipsen, Belgian bias picks Philipsen, I think.
Fair enough. Because Philipsen also, he had a dog shit week 1 last year, then he started to come good as everyone else got tired in the Tour de France. Stage 18 from Vif to Courchevel, Col de la Loze, 172 Ks, and hard stage. 2 HC climbs, 20 KOM points on each. The Glandon, which goes up in 3 steep steps. That's 22 Ks at 5%, but all the climbing's over 7%. There's 2 descents in there. They do the Madeleine afterwards, no valley. 20 Ks, 7.5%. Both up to 1900, 1986 meters. Descent, 15K valley, La Loze. 26.5 Ks, 6.4%. It's to Courchevel, like 7% for 10 Ks, 12 Ks. So that's consistent climbing on a big road. Then flat, well, not flat, it's like 5% then for 8 Ks. And then it's like the ramps up to La Loze, which we're all familiar with, which is very irregular. It's a harder climb than the average gradient suggests. It goes to 2,300 meters. That's high altitude.
But are the ramps on this version of Col La Loze the same level of difficulty as the ramps we saw on Roglic versus Pogačar versus Miguel Angel Lopez in 2020 vibes?
I don't actually know.
Let's go check. 1v1 tomorrow.
No, I'm not feeling so good. So
we're both half sick in this podcast. Our timing is perfect. Nonetheless, you named a fantastic stage on paper. Crazy parkour. Is it boring that I would go the same approach as I've been so far? I see no weakness in Pogačar, so I have to go for Visma Lease Bike makes the stage hard and Pogačar wins as a consequence.
I think Vingegaard wins this stage with a small gap of 15 seconds. It looks like a wobble, and it's ultimately irrelevant.
Okay, fair point, but
that is more me just being contrarian. Like in theory, yeah, of course, Pogačar's the favorite. I have the breakaway wins. From the breakaway, you need to be a proper climber. Lenny, Army Rail, and is there anyone else?
Army Rail? I like him a lot.
Because they're so long, the climbs.
Yeah, but isn't he a bit heavier for a climber? No offense to Armin. I mean, like, he to me looks like a medium mountain TT rider. Am I underrating him?
I think he's born in the wrong body and he has the spirit of a climber.
Paul Sixaz would have won here, I'm telling you.
Yes, he would have. Of course he would have won. I'm so stupid. What happens to my Armirel? Felix Gall is winning the stage from the breakaway.
Fuck.
He won it in 2023. It's not really a rocket science.
Yeah, that's a really good pick. That's a really good pick. I like your pick a lot.
Because he's on 20 minutes by this point.
Yeah, and if you look at the parkour, the only thing that I have is if Visma Lease Bike makes the stage hard, then will the break get enough of a time to be able to win the stage? That's a possibility that might not happen. But Felix Gall is such a good climber. Like, he might not be the climber that we... Is Felix Gall the climber that we expected him to be 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Is he not a little bit worse or a little bit...
Nah.
Did we expect him to become more all-round by now?
No.
Okay. Fair.
Look at his
Jeopardy
position on the
answers are
bike.
like... What, sorry?
But I mean, he came 20 seconds behind Almeida in that uphill TT in Swiss. He can climb.
Yeah.
He can't descend, he can't position, he can't ride on the flat, he can't TT.
There's 2 descents in this route, bro.
Yeah, but no one's going to go on the Madeleine and then be like, I'll hold it to the finish. They won't be I mean, maybe, but I don't think there'll be a Fugger on Madeleine. But yeah, I'm going golf in the breakaway. Stage 19, Benji.
Albertville to La Plagne. It's basically, if you look at the parkour, if you had a 3D version of the parkour in front of you and you felt it, it would feel like the same parkour as the one before. And I'm saying that because there's once again 3 massive climbs in it. Yes, on paper there's 5 categorized climbs here, but the first climb is basically 2 climbs pasted together. You start with the this is one of those moments where I have to put my laptop sideways to be able to see the name of this climb. The Côte d'Héry sur Ligne. It is 11.3 kilometers at 5%. After that, a small descent, and we continue climbing basically after like 3 kilometers onto the Col de Cézy, which is 13.8k at 6.4%. Combine those two, you're already climbing 25 kilometers by now. You're only 50k into the stage. Then starts the next climb without a valley, and that climb is the Col du Pré, which is 7.6 kilometers at 9.2% for the last portion, but in total 12.6k at 7.8%. So it's actually a hard climb. But like I said earlier, it's kind of just one part of the second mountain on the profile. Because after the top of that, a small descent, a little bit up and down. Then you start the last portion of the Cormet de Roselon, which is 5.8 kilometers at 6.5%. So you don't actually go up to above 2,000 meters by now in the stage. But with 80 kilometers into the stage, so about 50k left, you top that Cormet de Roselon, you start descending towards the foot of La Plagne. You've got a 13 kilometer valley before the foot of La Plagne. La Plagne is 19.3 kilometers at 7.2%. This is a very hard, this is a hard climb. I wouldn't say a very hard climb, it's a hard climb. And that's because of its length as well. Can we compare this a little bit with is Isola 2000 a bit similar in length?
Very similar climb, easily, yeah, because it's also so steady. Every K is also 7%.
Yeah.
And so Isola was, very, very similar. Plateau de Bay was harder in sections. For the KOM, they've tried to give the gift to the breakaway because the Col du Pré is HC.
Yeah.
In the middle of this stage, surrounded by 2 Cat 2s and a Cat 1. If you want to win the KOM, you have to be on the Col du Pré in the break.
Yeah.
I think Pog wins this stage because La Plagne is those sort of climbs he's just so good at. So
it's also just so long. So how many minutes does a breakaway need to have on Pogačar? Even if it's Gull, how much time in 19 kilometers can Pogačar take back on Felix Gull?
Yeah, 4 minutes.
I'm also feeling something like that.
Yeah.
And that's a big gap to have if Visma Leasebike won't just give up if Tadej Pogačar's in the yellow jersey. You'd hope
That's
so.
That's the thing. Or what if Remco's trying to drop Roglic or Bora trying to attack Remco to make... Last year, Vingegaard looked bad on Isla, so then on the Cuyol stage, Quickstep attacked Vingegaard, and that put the stage win in play again for Pogačar, and Carapaz and Mas got caught. So someone's going to be trying something to attack somebody.
I just don't believe in breakaways that much in mountain stages anymore because of that. Because the GC action is teams trying to outplay each other in GC teams, and in doing so, upping the speed on the entire day. And that restricts the gap that a breakaway can have. And there's also not 50 kilometers of flat before the first mountain. If this is a 200 kilometer stage with 70 kilometers of flat before we get to the first climb, then you might not have the light climbers in the breakaway, but the break might have 10 minutes by the foot of the climb, you know?
Exactly. That was the beauty of the Fenestra stage design. And I think what the Tour de France is lacking a bit is that, these mountain stages, they need to add more flat before the first climb, make it a bit longer.
On one end, I would say yes, but on the other ends, we're also complaining if it's too flat at the start because we want the breakaway formation with a hill in it or a climb in it. So it kind of goes both ways, but then I maybe want to see like a climb at the start, a long valley afterwards, stuff like that. But is that not just a sign of the times? We are here, the sport of cycling, talking about it needs to be more entertaining. We can't just have a 200 kilometer stage where half of it is flat, where not much happens.
Yeah, but they'll be jumping the whole time trying to get in the break.
I agree, but the traditional, it's not a traditionalist view, but I feel like the view from the mainstream view on cycling is that, let's make it shorter, more exciting stages, these mountain stages.
And the beauty of the Fenestra stage was it was 205 Ks, and there wasn't a categorized climb until like 150 Ks in, and the break got a 10-minute advantage. Anyway, I think stage 20 from Nantua to Pontarlier, 185 Ks, 30 points. It's a transition breakaway stage, very, very clearly. That's how it's been designed. There'll be a 50-man breakaway. There's 12K, 4% climb at the start, then it's really hilly all day. The Côte de Tezy is the hardest climb, 3.5 Ks, 9%. That's those 63 Ks from the finish. That's the climb where Vingegaard went solo in the Dauphiné 23, and then it's punchy hills to the finish. Yeah, it's gonna be a strongman winning solo, like a Moritz type guy. So, or Asgreen.
I'm hedging my bets, Mr. Patrick. I'm hedging my bets because we always speak about a GC rider might crash out or might have lost time by now in a Grand Tour.
Oh, Remco
Evenepoel wins from the breakaway.
Oh no. I mean, yeah, if he's out of GC, he will win this. It'll be Remco against Healy.
Yeah.
Like there'll be a selection on the Tezy, and then the Fuga de la Fuga games begin, and then the strongest hill guy for an hour riding solo wins, and it's Remco, and if not him, probably Healy. But that's break stage. Okay, 21, Benji, bring us home.
Who's your pick?
Healy.
Okay. All right. I'll take it. Stage 21 is Mont La Jolie to Paris Champs-Élysées, the usual sprint stage. No, we're not doing that this year. 142 kilometers. First half, I don't know how it's going to happen. Like, traditionally, Paris Champs-Élysées stage has become the festivities at the start, drinking champagne, picture with all the nationalities of the GC winner. So if it's a Danish rider winning or a Slovenian rider winning, all the Slovenians come to the front, stuff like that. I don't know if that's going to happen because the last half of this race has potential GC terrain, which, I'm sorry, Patrick, but there's 3 Montmartres in this parcours. So Montmartre is the cobble climb for the Paris Olympics from last year, where Remco Evenepoel didn't attack on that climb, but the one where Mathieu van der Poel tried to drop Van Aert and tried to bridge towards Remco Evenepoel, that cobble climb is the one we have here. It is 1 kilometer at 4.8%, but it's 3 times. Once with 40 kilometers to go, once with about 23 kilometers to go. Yes, my math is correct. And one with 6 kilometers to go. That is crazy to me. First reaction is, Van der Poel wins on the Champs-Élysées, or Pogačar, or riders like that. But is there a realistic chance that we get to the stage 20 of the Tour de France and Adam Hansen comes knocking on the door of ASO and is like, you got to cut it out. You got to freeze the GC times before Montmartre?
Well, if it's raining, they will. If it's raining, they will freeze the GC times when they enter the Paris finish circuit.
For safety, I understand, but it's a shame, you know?
Well, yeah, then it's not stage 21. It's like it's a criterium sort of.
Yeah, it's a random post-tour crit in a Kermesse in Belgium.
Yeah, I think this climb is not that hard. Like, it's 1K 5%. I know it's cobbled. I know it's very narrow. The full peloton going through here on stage 1 would be really bad. Maybe after 3 weeks, it's okay.
Yeah.
I think this is just a sprint, and I'm going with Jordi Meus. Back-to-back Champs-Élysées sprints. It's a bit of a cobble climb. It's a little bit harder. You never see him, and then all of a sudden he pops up and he wins.
Yeah. That's a really good pick. I'm jealous of that one. I'm going for Jasper Philipsen. For the sake of those climbs being present. Mathieu van der Poel can be their attacking option on Montmartre, but I think Philipsen is the man for the finish. And I think I'm leaning towards sprint as well, although I wouldn't mind if Pogačar tries something on the cobble climb here. Like, for the vibes. He did it on a flat Champs-Élysées, so he better do it on Montmartre. Nonetheless, he might not have to, because based on my scenario, Pogačar is in yellow and wins this Tour de France.
Yeah, if he's in yellow, it's less likely indeed.
Do we feel like there is something here where, like, the way we presented this, you even said there's perhaps a wobble on Col La Loze for Pogačar. Even with that wobble, Pogačar winning is so incredibly likely at the end of this race.
Exactly. When you see him that short in the odds, I mean, that's pricing in crash risk, which the first week is crazy, or sickness or something.
Is it?
Well, yeah. So
he doesn't crash often.
He's $1.36 to win. those odds will get a lot shorter. He won't be, even if he's the same time as Vingegaard and he starts the second week, he'll then be $1.20 or less because he's gotten through the hectic stages. So that's with the crash risk. That shows how short of a favorite he really is. And his team is good as well. Like, I mean, you could maybe say, okay, Soler, they could have done more of a refresh. It's not a big deal, to be honest. And Vingegaard just hasn't shown it this year so far.
Yeah. I think so too. And we've gone through the entire race now, which usually brings us to the moment of truth, my friend. The predictions. Do we start with the yellow jersey? Do we start with the white KOM jersey? Where do we begin?
We'll start with the KOM jersey, the one I have least idea about. And that's why I'm pausing, because I actually don't know who will win. Amirel won Basque Country KOM. He won Dauphiné KOM. I don't think he wins this KOM because I think he gets outclimbed on the finish climbs by Felix Gall, his own teammate.
I think that's very possible. I'm going for the rider that you named for KOM the first. I think Lenny Martinez. I'm going to steal your initial pick for this.
Yeah, Lenny should do it. For the white jersey, Pogačar's not eligible anymore. Remco is eligible. I'm going with Florian Lipovic.
Ooh, I'm going for Remco Evenepoel. And if we take a look at who is eligible outside of those two, then we also have Skjelmose, which we shouldn't forget either. We also have Martinez, I guess. Only, you said it. Rodriguez, I think, still as well. Paul Sixas if he was here.
Carlos Rodriguez.
Yeah. I'm going for Remco. I said I hedged my bets. I said he would, if he loses time in GC, he'll take stage 20. If he doesn't lose time, he takes white. That's what I feel right now. And that brings us to the green jersey of this race, which we've said could go any way. I'm going for Tadej Pogačar.
Yeah, I kind of think the problem is he won't go for the intermediate sprints. They still are worth something.
True.
But there's so many 30-pointers. But I think the break might take a few of some of these stages in their first week where we're like, Pogačar v MVP, Pogačar v MVP. There will actually be one. First, he might more likely to win the sprint. Secondly, the break is actually going to win some of them. And so I actually think it will still go to a sprinter, although Poggy will be close. And so, yeah, I think Johnny Milan wins it, actually.
Really? I applaud you for taking that pick. I'm just wondering at the moment, like, we're talking about these points and how it changed, etc. Do we know how close Pogačar was last year to the green jersey? Or, because he was last year, he was fourth on half the points of the winner, Benyam Girmay, who won 3 stages. The odds of a sprinter winning 3 stages exists. Pogačar will get more points for the stage that he does pick. Will not go for the bonus for the intermediate sprints. The thing is, I would pick Mathieu van der Poel easily if I had more confidence that he would win every single one of those hill stages.
Yeah, but is he going to go for the IS?
I would hope. I think he should. But it's difficult with Philipsen and Mathieu van der Poel, eh?
That's the thing. I think those two, it's tricky. So that's why I went with Milan, because I actually think Thibaut Nice really won't cannibalize too much.
Fair, but isn't the whole reason that ASO changed the green jersey because Adrie van der Poel complained that the green jersey is too much for flat sprinters or something? Was that not the case?
I don't know why they changed it. They obviously want Van Aert against Van der Poel every day.
Yeah.
But Van der Poel has to go for the intermediate sprints.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I don't feel Van Aert.
Part of going for the green jersey is contesting all the intermediate sprints, knowing that it might cost you your legs and you might end up coming second on a stage you otherwise would have won. That's part of going for green.
The opposite side of the coin is Wout van Aert, who will be going in the breakaway as satellite rider for Jonas Vingegaard on multiple stages. In doing so, being in the breakaway for the intermediate sprints. Does he have the level to win green? I'm not feeling that at the moment.
I don't
But
see
he
it.
might be in the position in the breakaway to be able to compete for it. But I'm leaning to top 3ing the green jersey classification more for a while.
There's still a lot of 50-point flat stages here
Yeah.
where you got to be coming top 3 as a sprinter. I think
Pogačar.
I'm sticking with Milan.
I agree that you're leaning towards sprinters, and objectively I probably should as well, but subjectively I think there's something about going for Pogačar green in this prediction. So that's what I'm doing. But this brings us to the final, my friend. The most important moment of this podcast. Who is going to finish on the podium of this Grand Tour at the end of the Tour de France 2025? I'm going to have a bit of a shocker, and I think one country will be very angry at me. Almeida finishes third, Remco Evenepoel finishes second, and Pogačar wins the Tour de France.
And Vingegaard's finished.
Well, I'm not saying finished. I'm saying Visma will go ham to try and beat Pogačar, and I think it not working will... I want to see Vingegaard going all in for the victory, in doing so trying to beat Tadej Pogačar, and not ending up in a position where he's like, oh, now I need to defend my position to Remco. So out of that desire of mine, that's why I'd rather see Vingegaard go all in and capitulate than seeing him finish second trying to defend against Evenepoel.
Almeida third. I think that's something I feel very strongly about because that's just what he's going to do. Yeah, Vingegaard second, Pogačar first.
Okay.
That's the most likely. That's the most likely.
I think that's the most rational one.
Like Almeida,
what do we see?
He might lose 30 seconds in some positioning issue on the first week. But he'll just... And that's the difference. Like, if Almeida's the outright leader and someone's constructing a strategy to take maximum time on Almeida, he's really exploitable. But backdooring third, with no one pacing against him specifically, he can do it.
And I just don't have any confidence in Roglic for this Tour de France after the Giro, which that doesn't mean much. His second Grand Tour is often his best in a year, but I'm just not feeling it when it comes to Roglic. And maybe that's a mistake on my end, but when it comes to Lipovic, I'm also not sure he can hold it for 3 weeks. He showed at the Vuelta that he's a solid GC rider.
That Dauphiné last stage didn't look so good.
Yeah, there's something about that. So I think he can top 5 for sure. I think that's the most realistic outcome for Lipovic in this race. And Skelmos' goal should be top 5, but he might land 6th or 7th or something like that.
Could happen. Okay, that's our predictions. I think we discussed all the possible machinations or what could happen at length. I think it's going to be another huge battle between UAE and Visma. It's going to be a real tension between them trying to hurt each other and all these other teams trying to have their own objectives, winning stages, KOM, and then there's this battle, this war raging on between those two teams.
And I think you pointed at something perfectly there. Like, I think the overwhelming question before the Dauphiné and after the Dauphiné from a lot of maybe mainstream cycling fans or even like people that are more invested in the sport even more when they're looking at the watts, etc., is this going to be a boring Tour de France because Tadej Pogačar is the obvious winner beforehand, quote unquote? I think the way this Tour de France has been built parkour-wise makes it so that the tension is there until the end of week 2 at least. Week 1, we've got the hilly parkour battles. Week 2, we get a first indication maybe when it comes to, okay, is Pogačar indeed better than Vingegaard? Most likely, yes. Then we'll see that. But it's week 3 where the domination might happen if that is likely to happen if Pogačar is better, you know?
Exactly. I mean, the Tour de France last year was kind of over by stage 15. This year, okay, say Pogačar takes 30 seconds on Hautacam. You still got the TT the next day. Who knows what could happen? It might go that deep. Hopefully, we're praying it becomes a huge battle into the third week. That's what we're all hoping for. There would be nothing better for the race than if Vingegaard was, at the level of Pogačar, or just below, and then you have a real fight. But yeah, the first 10 days, I can't wait because no one should be taking minutes there unless there's crashes or something.
Yeah, is this our longest Tour de France preview of all time?
It is. I don't know why. I feel like I was trying to move through it, but maybe...
It was good pacing, don't worry. It's just
I'm gassed now. I'm gassed.
there's so much to talk about.
Anyway, thanks for listening to the massive LICP preview. Thanks to our sponsors, not just for this episode, but throughout the year. Join Morton and Savello today. Check out the merch if you want a Tug Buddy t-shirt to support us directly. And otherwise, we'll see you with stage 1 of the Tour de France. We will do live watch-alongs on YouTube for certain key stages. Not stage 1, but like maybe if Benji twists my arm, maybe you do a watch-along. He will twist my arm.
Because stage 1 will do good on YouTube.
True, yeah. Get the algorithm rolling. So yeah, we'll do watch-alongs. We'll have recaps. It'll be great. Benji's coming here to Andorra on Friday. And we'll see you then. Ciao, ciao.